Good morning, everybody. Hell of an episode for you today. But before we get into that, you know what's first. The business side of the house. The brands that help make this podcast possible. Today's episode is brought to you by Human. As we get older, fatigue and lack of endurance that we're all going to feel, it's not always going to be fixable or solvable with more caffeine. Trust me, personal note here, I've tried. So if you're looking for a new way to start your day outside of that caffeine, Super Beets Heart Chews. They're a tasty treat that gives you the energy you need, and they are good for you. So there's no more afternoon coffee or energy drinks and candy for that quick pick-me-up. Personally, I've tried all three of those in combination. Now you have the choice. You can add 2 delicious plant-based Super Beets Heart Chews to your morning routine and promote heart-healthy energy for your day without a caffeine crash. Because Super Beets Heart Chews' unique, clinically researched grapeseed extract promote healthy heart energy and normal blood pressure as part of a healthy lifestyle. I have personally started snacking on these shortly after jiu-jitsu, which finishes up for me just after midday. Because if I drink coffee after about 2 p.m., I have problems sleeping, and they're giving me that little boost that I need. The grapeseed extract used in the Super Beets Heart Chews has been clinically shown to be 2 times as effective at supporting normal blood pressure as a healthy lifestyle alone. So you can do more for your heart and treat yourself with Super Beets Heart Chews. Join over 1 million customers. Get free shipping and returns, a 90-day money-back guarantee, and right now you can get a free 30-day supply with your first purchase at superbeets.com/clearedhot. That is superbeets.com/clearedhot. Speaking of feeling your best, this episode is also brought to you by Feels. Now, Feels is a CBD company, and when it comes to CBD, it isn't about what you feel, it's about what you don't feel, specifically stress, anxiety, and pain. Feels is a better way to feel better. Feels is a premium CBD that will help to keep your head clear and help keeping you feeling your best. It is hassle-free, delivered directly to your door. CBD naturally helps reduce stress, anxiety, pain, and sleeplessness. There's no hangover and there's no addiction. You place a few drops of Feels under your tongue or pop a CBD-infused mint in your mouth for a dose of chill on the go. Now, the thing with CBD is dosage is important, so I always recommend the flight when it comes to Feels because it gives you 3 options and you can find what is best for you. Feels offers a free CBD hotline to help guide your personal experience so that you find that perfect dose, and the Feels customer service team is dedicated to making sure you get the best use of CBD. Joining their monthly membership makes the self-care very easy, and you'll save money on every order, and you can pause or cancel at any time. So start feeling better with Feels. Become a member today by going to feels.com/clearedhot, and you'll get 40% off your first 3 months with free shipping. That is feals.com/clearedhot to become a member and get 40% off automatically taken off your first 3 months with free shipping. This episode is also brought to you by 10,000. Are you looking for the most badass pair of training shorts that you've ever worn in your life? And you don't actually have to train in them. They're just very comfortable kick-arounds as well. Well, guess what? You found them. 10,000 makes the highest quality, best fitting, and most comfortable training shorts that I have ever worn. They were developed and tested with over 50 special ops members who put it to the test by rucking, swimming, lifting, and just all around beating the crap out of this product. And what came out of it? The holy grail of tough workout shorts. They are chock full of features to stand up to the toughest workout sessions. The tactical short, specifically, the 7-inch tactical short, what I'm talking about here, was created to withstand the demanding and ever-changing requirements of military fitness. They have an ultralight ripstop fabric, tough as nails waistband, permanent anti-odor treatment, no bounce pocket, medium compression anti-chafe liner, slide slits, and 4-way stretch for maximum range of motion. 10,000 is a direct-to-consumer company. There's no middlemen, so you get premium fabrics, trims, and techniques that other brands simply cannot afford. They have a collaborative product development. Like I said, a team of over 200 athletes is testing their gear to ensure perfect design, fabric, trims, and fit, including those 50 members of the Special Ops community. Free shipping and returns, and a lifetime guarantee. 10,000 is offering the listeners 15% off of your purchase. Go to 10,000.cc. That is not .com, 10,000.cc, and enter the code ClearedHot to receive 15% off your first purchase. That is 10,000.cc, and enter the code ClearedHot. Last but not least, let's round out today by talking about your nutritional insurance. That's right, I'm talking about Athletic Greens. AG1 by Athletic Greens, the category-leading superfood product, brings comprehensive and convenient daily nutrition to everybody. Keeping up with research, knowing what to do, and taking a bunch of pills and capsules is hard on the stomach and hard to keep up with. To help each of us be at our best, they simplify the path to better nutrition by giving you the one thing with all of the best things already in it. One tasty scoop of AG1 contains 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients, including a multivitamin, multi-mineral, probiotics, green superfood blend, and more in one convenient daily serving. The special blend of high-quality, bioavailable ingredients and a scoop of AG1 work together to fill the nutritional gaps in your diet, support energy and focus, aid with gut health and digestion, and support a healthy immune system, effectively replacing multiple products or pills with one healthy, delicious drink. One of the things I love about Athletic Greens is as the research change, so does their formula. They're on their 53rd iteration and continuing on. To make this decision even easier for you, Athletic Greens is going to give you an immune-supporting free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase if you visit athleticgreens.com/clearedhot today. That is athleticgreens.com/clearedhot to take control of your health and give AG1 a try. And that's it. We did it. We have arrived at the end of the advertisements. Let's talk about my guest today. This is a fascinating man, and this is an example of why I love the internet. Somebody reached out on his behalf and connected us, and his story is absolutely fascinating to me. My guest, Niels Jorgensen, served as an FDNY firefighter for almost 22 years until he had to take a forced medical retirement because of the leukemia he contracted from cleaning up Ground Zero. He has done a little bit of work on the Emmy-nominated Rescue Me with Dennis Leary. He has started a 20 for 20 podcast series telling the stories of around the 9/11 time period. All of those things are fascinating. He does an amazing job of describing who he is, where he comes from, and what he wants to do moving forward. So I'm going to shut my mouth and let you guys enjoy episode number 202 with Niels Jorgensen.
Okay, got the red smoke. Gun run, north to south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke. Okay, copy, west of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now. Come on with it, baby, give it to me, I need it. You're cleared hot. Copy, cleared hot.
Listen to how good that sounds.
Oh, yeah. Especially for an old guy deaf from fire horns. Excellent.
They make things called Ear Pro.
Yes, I think I'll be buying those soon. But
It's like guys who go to the gun range all the time. Like, I can't hear anything. Foamy earplugs are like 62 cents. So you can go ahead and...
yeah, they work. They help.
Actually, I had never thought about that. My brother-in-law is a San Diego City fire captain.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
And you guys don't wear... Well, you wear the big headphones in the truck, right? The
We
ones
don't.
with the...
In New York, we don't. I know.
Really?
I just saw Kalispell going by wearing them. I said,
Swing this thing right in front of your face. Keep it there.
smart. I said, they were wearing them. I was like, smart. My dad's an old fireman. He's deaf. We all go deaf.
Why would you guys not wear them in New York? I feel like it would be the easiest way to communicate. Money? I feel like that fire trucks are very expensive.
Yeah.
And adding a set of ear protection or headset for each person
Yeah.
riding wouldn't be too much of an expense.
Well, we had a former mayor. To keep the diesel costs down, who removed the air conditioner. So it took $5,000 per truck to take the unit out, so he could save $10,000 in fuel over the life of the truck.
What is that called? Is stepping over a quarter to pick up a dime, I
Yeah.
believe?
Yeah, it's
Or
called-
also bureaucry.
Not giving a shit about your people, basically.
We'll
Yeah.
just roll down the windows. It doesn't ever get hot or muggy in
No.
the Northeast.
Never, ever. And they firebomb you occasionally. It happened back in the mid-late 90s. They tossed a Molotov cocktail into an engine that was going by and burned 2 guys up.
Who did that?
Ended their careers. Incorrigible, angry people in a tenement just launched it in. Guys had the window out of the frame to keep cool because there was no AC, and they were caught in a flash fire. Basically, one of the guys had to stop, grab an extinguisher, and put them out. And,
So they were inside of a fire truck while the inside of a fire truck was on fire.
Yes, sir.
With liquid gasoline.
And they ended their careers, with bad burns.
Surprised they didn't get killed, but well, the turnout's probably
It was close.
Yeah,
One of them was close, yeah. So,
yeah. To be honest, I'll take a hard pass on your occupation,
yeah.
and I base my knowledge of your occupation off of Backdraft for clarity.
Yeah.
The movie. So
well, times that by 100 without being able to see anything. That's what it was come down to, right? They ran like it was just a high school 50-yard dash, but you can't see this, in front of you. So
it also seemed like wearing their what do you guys call the breathing apparatus you use?
self-contained breathing apparatus. Depending on the company, we use Scott air packs, which are kind of
An air pack.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Seems like those were optional, and also buttoning up your turnout jacket was optional.
Bull was Kurt Russell. Was Bull.
Correct.
Yeah. Human He was made of asbestos. Yeah, well.
Well, I feel like the white dress shirts that he were making were slightly fire retardant.
Yeah.
It would seem that way, at least based on the movie.
And they never got charred up in black. I don't understand that. It was amazing.
It's almost like they had a prop department that would switch out shirts every single take.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you made the trip out, man, and thank you, Alex, for reaching out on his behalf. Your name is spelled like it should be Niels. The fact that it's Nels.
Yeah, it's Denmark. My granddad was Grandpa Nels, and it's one of those up for interpretation names. I go by Niels, Niles, Nils. Just
correct
whatever.
Is Nels, though.
Yeah.
So we'll just call it a silent I.
Yes, that's fine. Yep, that's it.
All right.
That's it. Most people who get it right, that's how they say it. So.
All right. So how long have you lived in New York? Well, I know you just moved. I'm not going to say where you moved to protect your privacy, but how long did you live in New York?
Well, I fled communism a year ago. I
feel like you might not be the only one.
Yeah, I was born and raised New York City guy, Brooklyn, then Staten Island, and some years back moved to mid-New Jersey, south, we call it the Shore, halfway between New York City, Atlantic City, Brick Township, and then got tired of the taxes, the congestion, the insanity, so just moved south. And but I was, except for 1 year in high school when we moved to Ireland, my Irish mother wanted to move back because my father, who was also a city firefighter, he was real sick with cancer at one point, got into remission, and she felt that going back to her safety net in Ireland was the best bet. And after about 10 and a half months of that, my father said, nope, we're out of here. It's not America. We're going back. And we came back. That was sophomore year of high school. Thank God. Love Ireland, love my cousins, my family there, but not America.
It's a rough time to make a move as well. In the middle of your high school.
Horrible.
When we moved up here to Montana, one of the discussion points between myself and my ex-wife was where our kids were in school. I wanted to make the move before our oldest even got into high school because my parents, with the best of intentions, put me into a private school for gifted children, which, full disclosure, is not me. Okay, not me whatsoever. What I think happened is my grandfather essentially paid the tuition there, and they said, welcome aboard.
Come on in, yeah.
Yeah, so I went private junior high to public high school.
Okay.
And even that, living in the same town, but going from the cohort that I had in that private school to a public school, I didn't know anybody the first day.
Yeah.
It's hard enough as it is to be a 14, 15-year-old young man.
Yes.
I didn't need to apply that to my kids. Like, let's just rip you out of state in between 8th and 9th grade. So we got them up here exactly to avoid what happened to you.
Yeah.
Not that it would have been catastrophic, but I was trying to at least align things in their favor.
Yeah, you did them a justice. The double whammy was came back in sophomore year, torn out to another country, came back, and then failed out of the Catholic all-boys high school that I was in and ended up in the public school in my senior year, and it was brutal because they were football rivals. And
ooh, that's rough.
It was rough.
I feel like, and having never gone to Catholic school, I feel like you might have had more fun at the public school.
Yeah, it was a little loose, less rules.
Yeah.
You could have an earring and a mustache and
less judgment and shame and just weight.
Christian brothers beating the crap out of you. Yeah, pretty much. It was different. Fair. It was different.
What got your dad into the fire service?
My dad, interesting guy. His dad's from Denmark, hard-working guy. One of those immigrant success stories. Arrived with $22 in his pocket and ended up owning his own bakery at one point, his own little apartment building. So my dad, there was
in New York, I'm assuming?
Brooklyn, New York, yeah, and Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, which is a big enclave of immigrants, different sects, so to speak. You have, Scandinavian, Irish, Italian, Middle Eastern. Still very similar melting pot. Less European now at this point. Most of those folks have kind of migrated away. But my dad, the ups and downs of my granddad's life, there was many, many years of struggle, near poverty, and then all of a sudden some success, and then lost a business, back to near poverty. So my dad hated that up and down. So he joined the Air Force, and he was an air crash rescue guy. Was intending to stay career Air Force, but the city at the time was paying better money, and he missed home. So he wanted to take the test, and he did, and got on the city department as a young guy, probably like 23, and met my mom, got married, and just living the American dream. He ended up doing 34 years, but in his 15th year with the department at 38 years old, he came down with an end-stage non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. They sent him home to die. And they said, get your affairs in order. But one doctor said, we'd like to make you a test pilot for this new drug. And he's like, hey, doc, I'm a fireman, not a pilot. So she goes, no, let's try this drug out. So he said, okay, let's do it. And for every 2 weeks for 4.5 years, he got the shit knocked out of him bad. I mean, he'd literally go to work, leave at noon, take a train and a ferry and another train, go to the infusion center, and then for the next 4 days be violently ill. And I just remember at 10 years old wiping the vomit away from him, and he couldn't even drink, and just praying over him. And he made it. He was my idol because he'd never complained. He just soldiered on through, and I still got him. He's 82 years old. One of my
No kidding.
Still here. Multiple cancers, multiple heart issues, this, that. He's a rough guy with an extremely soft edge. He's a true gentleman, and didn't say a lot. My granddad was a troubled guy. He left home at 12 years old. We think he might have been a victim of abuse because he was with sponsor families. He was an apprentice baker. So he took out a lot of his, I guess, hurt and anxiety and rage or whatever it may have been on his own family, my grandma, my dad, and his sisters. And my dad had a hatred for him for many, many years. And towards the end of my grandfather's life, he had this change. He became this gentle, kind, loving grandpa. I mean, the best. And I adored him. I was his namesake. And he and my dad, they fixed up whatever it was. And they were okay. When my granddad left and went home to the Creator, my dad was okay with it. And strange thing about my dad, he could never tell me he loved me. And I got on the fire department at 22. I was a city cop at 20 for 2 years. And
we'll get back to that.
Yeah, okay, yeah, interesting. It was good. It was,
a cop coming from a fire family, I'm sure there was some interesting Thanksgiving conversations.
Oh, yeah. Yes, there was. Got a lot of badges. But my dad just, one of those guys, he couldn't say I love you. And I got on the department, and I had my first rip and fire, and he says, hey, kid, how'd it go? I said, oh, it's good, Pop. It's good, talking about the first couple days on the truck. And I said, I love you, Pop. And he said, oh, yeah, thanks, kid. And I said, you could say it. You could say it back, brother, because now you call him brother because he's a brother firefighter. He says, oh, I love you. So now every time after we've had a conversation, and one of the things in the fire service is keep low below the flames, sort of like in the military, you get down below things. She says, I love you, kid, keep low. I said, all right, Pop, you too. Now I call him old timer. All right, old timer, because, those were the sage guys in the top ranks in the job, and they, always give you those good bits of advice.
Did you ever hear your father telling his father that he loved him, or vice versa?
No.
It's probably where it came from. I'm glad that they were able to find closure in the end and repair that relationship. Yeah, and I love hearing when people can break that cycle.
Yes.
Because it's not uncommon for somebody in your dad's position to repeat that cycle, and that sucks. It just passes on that generation.
Yeah. And my granddad had a bad problem with alcohol, and I'm not embarrassed to say it. It tore apart my dad's family, and he'd be blinded with alcoholic rages. Didn't even remember the things he did. Mm-hmm. And my father, if to see him have more than 2 beers, it's like, whoa. He put an end to it.
Easy rager.
Yes. Guy, they go through that mirror, some people, right? We know. And St. Patty's Day especially. Look at
shit, I forgot about that.
When Fifth
Is
Avenue.
Is that a big deal in New York, St. Patty's Day?
Oh, yeah, that's the high holy day. Yeah. Even Italian guys are Irish on St. Patty's Day.
I believe I've seen some green-colored water and some very impressive marching.
Yes, and green-colored vomit at the end of the day. It's a
shocker.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I bet your father grew up in an environment where he never heard that, and he probably didn't want to say it to the person who was treating him poorly. But it's an important thing. Imagine being on your deathbed realizing you didn't tell people enough how you felt about them.
Yeah.
I think I irritate my kids.
Oh, yeah. All my kids, I hug them, love them, kiss them. Yep. I do that to my buddies. They run when they see me because they're going to grab them.
Slightly gay.
No, I'm in touch with it. I love to give them a big sloppy hug and a kiss on the cheek. And, it gets sloppier with the more Guinness on St. Patty's Day. But,
you and I are going to get along just fine. It's the only beer that I actually like.
Oh, it's a meal. That's not a beer. That's a meal.
Do they dye it green on St. Patty's?
They dye the Budweiser. The Guinness, that's like sacrilege.
I was going to say,
yeah, they make
it would be cool if the foam was a little green.
Yeah.
But I don't know how you would do that. I think you'd have to dye the liquid.
They make some of the good bartenders make the Shamrock literally out of the foam with
the spoon.
Yeah. And but Budweiser is the one they usually dye. And
Budweiser is what you drink when you want to get the taste of kissing your sister out of your mouth. All right, that's who drinks Budweiser.
Yeah,
swine.
As my late dear friend Chuck Brockmeyer from New Orleans, God rest him, he was an airborne ranger and a New Orleans fire captain. He called it foot wash. Budweiser foot wash.
People are like, oh, it's so cheap, I can buy so much. Yeah, there's a reason that it's that cheap.
Yeah.
And you can buy so much. It's made in a bathtub. And I have no idea where Budweiser is made. Sorry, Budweiser fans.
Yeah.
But Guinness is superior in every way. And if you don't agree with that, you can go fuck yourself.
That's right, exactly. Tell that to the boys in Ireland. They'll fight you. So.
Okay, so did you grow up around the firehouse? And again, I'm ashamed to say my understanding of the geography of New York, it sucks. Like I recognize the names, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
I've been to New York, I think 4 or 5 times. Walked through Central Park. I've been to Times Square. Probably the touristy things. But understanding the boroughs and where everything is laid out.
Sure.
I don't know much about it, but even talking with my brother-in-law, Jason, because I'm pretty sure. I don't want to misspeak, but I think he's done some trips out there just to visit the firehouses as a fellow firefighter. And it might have actually been around, I'd go around St. Patty's Day if I were him.
Oh, yeah, that's the time most guys will. Yeah.
But everybody describes the NYFD, at least, as this, what would be the best description? Mafia? Family?
That's, there was never any exclusionary
Not mafia
policies.
in the negative sense.
Oh, no.
Meaning just a super tight-knit family.
We had the factions. We have the Italian mafia, the Irish mafia, the German mafia in the department because years ago, immigrants came to the country and they realized it was slow and steady. Like my dad took it for that reason. Slow and steady to the end of the race. The pension was the goal.
Yeah.
You didn't really make much money, but for the rest of your life, if you put in your time, you'd still get paid. And so what happened is immigrants were passing it on to their children. I was second generation. My son now was thinking law enforcement, fire department, but he now wants to be a pilot. He switched gears because of all the turmoil in the last few years. He's 21, great young man.
I've had quite a few people reach out who were considering law enforcement in New York.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are asking me about military service instead. And I think, and again, I don't live there. I don't know much about it, but let's just say the environment that I have heard from a leadership and bureaucratic perspective, mostly I'm hearing it on the law enforcement side of the house. I don't know how it affects it on the fire side of the house, but what I'm hearing from the law enforcement side, it's not great. It wouldn't surprise me if I'll put it this way, it wouldn't surprise me if they had issues with recruitment. Unless they start changing something.
Well, Andy, I'll put it to you this way, right? It's probably next to San Francisco, runs neck and neck as the most expensive city in the country, right? It's. I think the average rent is $3,900 a month, and
what kind of square footage do you get for that?
That's probably a 42 square foot studio apartment with a sink. Yeah,
with a shared bathroom.
Yeah, with 12 other apartments. I mean, it's literally I'll put it to you this way: I started in 1989 as a rookie police officer. And we were making $12.45 an hour. And if we made at that time $11.50 with 2 children, we were entitled to public assistance. So in today's times and today's economics and numbers, the starting salary is about $40,000. Now that sounds like decent money if you go somewhere into the heartland of America where it's affordable.
Yeah.
But when you take the average rent being $3,700, $3,800, $3,900.
You're already over $40,000.
Oh, in one bridge alone from Staten Island to Brooklyn, where I grew up, the Verrazano, is $20.50 just to take the round trip on that one bridge. Now, if you assign to Manhattan, you have the tunnel, which is $10.25 each passage each way. Now, the thing is, if you want to wait for the free Brooklyn Bridge, you'll sit for an extra hour and a half. Or if you want to get to work on time, you spend the extra $10.50 to go through the tunnel. So now you're already out $30 just to get to the city.
Yeah, you're already in the hole.
Yeah, so that $40,000 is literally just about diced and sliced and gone away before you even paid anything. So who the hell's going to take that job? I mean, but there's still people signing up. That's what I love about it. The warrior class, the subculture of military responders, nurses, that kind of folks, medics. They just do it because that's what they do.
Yeah.
But it sucks because you can't survive. You can't afford to take your girlfriend to a Broadway theater show, but yet you're guarding it on your routine patrol, but you can't afford to go in there on your day off. Or, you know, look, everyone cries the blues to a certain level, but it kind of sucks when you look at what they're paying the people to protect the citizenry, and it's like, and then they wonder why guys want to move away, or guys will get their cursory 3, 4, 5 years and then leave for a suburban department for way more money.
Yeah.
Can't blame them. Can't blame anybody for leaving, you know.
So did you grow up around the firehouse?
I did, yeah. My dad, I was a Brooklyn kid till I was about 5, and my dad's firehouse was about 3 miles from our home. But there was a firehouse that was 12 doors up from the building I was born in. And occasionally my dad would get sent down there to fill in, because they call it a detail. So sometimes if you're the extra man on the tour, a tour of duty, which is a day, you know, a day or a night, they'd send you where they needed to fill in. So if my dad would fill in, I'd ride my little big wheel up there. You know, my mom would be watching it, and he'd meet me on the corner, go in the firehouse, hang out. And then occasionally, you know, when he was off duty, he would drive down to get his paycheck, and I'd say, you know, can I go with you? I was, you know, 4 or 5 years old, and I just remember getting out of the car, this big, huge garage door. You'd walk in, there was all these giants with mustaches, and they were laughing and having the best time, and right, and you smelled the truck and the, you know, the grease from the engine and the diesel fumes and the smoke and the residue from their coats and their helmets and their boots, and there'd be a dog running around the firehouse chasing the firehouse cat, and then all these giants with mustaches just laughing and then feeding you ice cream and cake and cookies. Don't tell your mother when you get home, you know, and like it was just, I was like, wow, this is so cool, you know, not realizing the danger and the,
yeah.
But I was like 5 years old, and I'm like, oh yeah, man, I'm sold. This is it. And I was obsessed from that point on. It was like live, die, breathe. I'm going to be a New York City fireman. Yeah.
So how'd you break it to your dad that you were going to be a cop first?
Well, he, believe it or not, see, this is the confliction of him. The city time and the city pension is all continuous. So if you get on, say, sanitation department and do 5 years and wait it out to get on the fire department, you're in the system. So my dad's whole plan was, look, get the first job in the system and get the time going.
Get the clock going.
Yeah. So I went to swear in for the jail guard job, the corrections officers, and God bless them. But I walked in, and I was supposed to swear in that afternoon, and I said, sir, I'm going to pass on this one. And I walked out because I just like, whoa, this isn't for me. And my police investigator 6 months later, he says, why did you turn down corrections? You would have been in the system. I said, sir, no disrespect. I said, I didn't know how long I'd have to wait out PD and then eventually fire. I said, I'd rather go back to my construction job. So I just sprinted out of that jail, and that was it. But yeah, so my dad told me to take the police test, and I loved being a cop because I was out helping people, getting paid, not much, but I just loved it. I mean, if the fire department didn't come around, I would have been somewhat heartbroken, but I would have been fine. You know, I liked being a cop. I mean, and back then you were a beat cop. You were in the neighborhood, you were in the hood. And unfortunately for us, it was the crack wars. And a young officer, the class before my rookie class, in order to keep us off the blocks, there was these 6-story tenements, and they would drop large things off those buildings to scare you. And this young gentleman, he was struck in the back of the head with a bucket of cement. And sheared his, well, by the grace of God, unfortunately, strange to say this, but he lived. But he's a vegetable 33 years later in a rehab institute, and you'll never hear his name. The press will never, ever do a story on him because it doesn't fit their narrative, their story, their whatever. And that was the cruelty of being a cop. You know, I would walk the old ladies to the market and make sure they got there safe. And I literally had a gangbanger come up on me one day, and initially you're like, okay, what the frick's this guy want? And he goes, yo, man, you just walked this old lady to the market? I said, yes, sir, I did. He goes, that's my mom, man. I said, okay. He says, I'll be watching out for you, man. I said, well, that's what I do for all the old ladies in the neighborhood. I said, but do me a favor, watch out for all of us. I said, because we're not here to mess with you. I said, we're just here to protect the people. And, you know, even though the guy was a bad dude and he was a drug dealer, he got that concept. We were protecting his mother. And as strange as that sounds, there was a little bit of a respect, which is now gone. There's no more reaching across the aisle, so to speak, or looking someone in the eyes and having a conversation. It's just gone. It's evaporated. You know, I'm 53, and I feel like I used to live on Earth, and now I'm on Mars. You know, not to sound negative and whatever, but
I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
it's very jarring. The last few years are the direction that we are heading, or the difference that I have seen.
Yeah.
I used to hear my dad say this all the time. The changes that I've seen in my life. I'm like, shut up, old man.
No, I do the same thing to my father.
And now I'm sitting here thinking, well, shit. The changes that I've seen in the last few years have been
scary,
pretty shocking. Actually, the course is, I will say, changing. I was going to say correcting, but the course is changing at a pace that is more rapid than I thought it was actually capable of.
Andy, it's on a collision course with itself. It's if you drive a car too fast on a curvy road, you're running off the road eventually. I don't care how good of a driver you are. It's just what used to be, say there was parameters and there was like limits and you didn't cross this line. It's all been erased. And I don't want to be melodramatic and sad, because part of my mission now is I'm trying to reverse that, right? I'm trying to get these good messages out about responders and break people down and show the human side of what military, what police, what fire, what medics, what ER nurses do. But dialogue has been eradicated. Now if you say something to offend someone, they're looking to hurt you and cancel you and hurt your family and your life and your livelihood. Whereas, back, I'm a little bit older than you and, but we're pretty much from that same generation, so to speak. You didn't do that stuff. I mean, if you had it out with someone, you go smack the crap out of each other, or you go have an argument and you just finish it and you walked away.
Well, I was not raised with the expectation of that I was not going to be offended in my life.
Yeah.
I never was told or taught that, the world has to have round edges and you should avoid difficult things.
Yeah.
And that if somebody says something to you that you don't like, what you should do is try to shut them down as opposed to just engage with them in a conversation. To me, it's shocking that people feel that they are going to go through their life without encountering something that is offensive.
Oh, yeah.
And my question is, well, if you're offended by something that I may say, and I say some dumb shit, I'll be the first person to admit it.
Oh, me too.
But how about this for the person who's offended by what I say? I'm offended by how easily offended you are.
Oh, yeah.
So now we're at a bypass. Because if I'm supposed to be respect you being offended, where are you going to show me the respect for me being offended?
Right.
Their answer is no. And it's like, well, I guess we're fucked then.
Right. We can't erase offending each other. So now,
I'm offended by your offensive and easily offended personality.
Absolutely. And I know some people are offended when the barista at the coffee bar runs out of oat milk and they throw a shit fit. And I'm going, just get milk. Don't worry about it. Like, move on and go on with your day. But
some people cannot.
Yeah, well, I think some people are out there looking for it, right? It's like people, I remember folks who used to walk the streets of Manhattan and Brooklyn looking for nickels and quarters and pennies because you'd find them. You'd probably make a couple bucks a day if you just kept looking down. And now you just got people looking around for, oh, that offended me, that offended me, that offended me. It's like you really have too much time in your hands. Go get a job, go get a hobby, stop being offended.
Well, it's almost as if we've created an environment where being offended is, I don't know if this is the right term, but rewarded.
Oh, yeah.
So therefore, you are enticing people to actually look for those things because when they find that, the spotlight and magnifying glass is thrown onto them. And they're rewarded for it. And to me, that's the opposite of what it should be.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you heard something that you don't agree with? Cool. Maybe go engage with that person to get an understanding of where they're coming from. Or here's another thought. If you see it on social media and you're super offended, turn it off. Or do nothing.
Or be like me. Don't have social media.
Yeah.
Right? Just don't have social media.
Or a concept that a lot of people struggle with is that it's okay to not have an opinion on something.
True.
So if somebody is very vocal about something that they're passionate about, it's 100% okay for you to go, I don't know anything about that, moving on with my life.
That's it. And
it's like, fuck.
My Irish mother, God bless her, she's a good woman, and she used to have this goofy expression I never understood as a kid. And she used to say, I know who I am, but you know who you are. And I used to be like, Mom, that doesn't make any sense. Now I'm going,
crystal clear
that's
now.
Some profound shit, Mom, right? I told you back then I knew what I was talking about. But like, she's right. And
that's 100%
yeah,
accurate.
I just, maybe just we need to start wrapping people in bubble wrap and let them just hang out in the corner, right? Because they're scared to walk in the room and something happen.
I don't know if that solves anything, though.
No, it just puts more plastic in the ocean and the garbage dumps. You know what I mean? But back in the fire department, the proving ground was the firehouse kitchen, because you'd walk in the first day in your dress uniform, and the tradition was you brought a cake. And, we had one guy in the academy. He's like, excuse me, sir, should we bring a cheesecake the first day? And you're considered a probie. So one guy from the military made up a song, I'm a probie. You might say, don't bring cheesecake your first day. And the instructor's like, no, asshole, bring a chocolate cake, bring a pie. It doesn't have to be cheesecake. But you'd walk in and sir, Fireman Jorgensen reporting for duty. And like, where are you from, scumbag? Staten Island, sir. They open up the cake, they take it, and they fire it into the fucking garbage, and you just spent, $15 you didn't have, and they're like, the captain's upstairs, scumbag. Welcome to the truck, and you're like, oh, this is going to be a long 20 years, right? And the second they laid eyes on you, they were testing you out.
Yeah.
Same in the military, right? And they saw what you can take and what would make you break. Because if you broke easily in the firehouse kitchen, you were not making it on a fire ground. You were going to fuck up and kill someone else. So they would try to weed you out quickly and do you a favor and say, look, get yourself a job in training somewhere or get yourself a job where it's not so busy. You're a liability. And it was nothing against anyone personally. But when you're in a life and death profession, if you don't have guys who can cut it, it don't matter, black, white, green, brown, yellow, purple, this, that, whatever. If you can't cut it, you're getting the guy next to you dead.
Yeah.
And there's no do-overs in the dead businesses, right? I mean, that's it. And that's now there's guys who've gone to court, to state Supreme Court because someone flowered their bunk. And they were,
Seriously?
oh, I swear to God, they were offended. It's like, you gotta be, can I say the F word?
You already did.
Yeah, I did. You're right. Are you fucking kidding me? Right? I mean, I'm sorry, but you're what? Okay, yeah, the guy was testing you out, and now you went to court. So you just had the whole unit broken up, and everyone's been transferred away from their command because you have soft skin, and you don't have, your feelings got hurt. So now we call it the Department of Feelings because of all these new little snowflakes. And I'm sorry, this is going to get me in trouble. Sorry, but I'm just saying reality. It's life and death jobs. And I'm not saying that some of the hazing might have been a little rough. Some of it was. I got the shit hazed out of me, but I handled it. I took it.
I also know somebody who got the shit hazed out of them.
Yeah.
Looks a lot like me.
Yeah.
I think I wrote most of those checks.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah. But I'm sure there's just a tad of hazing in the SEALs, right? But I mean,
there is.
But it's necessary. It's part of the function of the organization.
But it's expressly prohibited by doctrine.
Yeah.
And that's where, I think about when you're talking about it ending up in the state Supreme Court. That's not, if you're going to the state Supreme Court because somebody flowered your bed, which I'm assuming is just put flour all over your bed.
Yeah, that's it.
You're
embarrassed.
That's not what the court should exist for.
No.
So you're misusing a system that is supposed to be there, in my understanding, the justice system. Get the fuck over it.
Yeah.
However, in the SEAL community, what I can tell you is that hazing, and I don't know what term they would use now. I'll talk about my experience and only my experience because I'm detached from the military at this point.
Sure.
It was an invaluable tool.
Yeah.
And to be honest, when they were hazing people, if you weren't getting hazed and your peers were, it almost made you feel out of place.
Yeah.
Like you wanted to be a part of that group. There's a reason why they, and I look back now, the people that you didn't haze were the ones that you thought were going to, basically report it and go down that path. Not that they would go in the military to the Supreme Court.
Sure.
Or people that you didn't like. The ones that, like my best friends, were the ones that hazed the shit out of me.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not advocating hazing because I don't know how I don't have the vocabulary to describe the role that it filled in the community. But what I will say is that it was critical, that it brought us together, and it can absolutely be taken too far. I think the intent behind it absolutely matters.
Yes.
And in the military, guess what? It's expressly prohibited by doctrine.
Yeah.
And it still happens. And the chain of command knows about it for all those people out there like, oh, I didn't know that my men were doing that. Fuck you.
Well, like Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
It's like, really?
Yeah. No, but
you were never a new guy, sir? Like,
right.
Shut up.
But we never went to a vicious level. Like we say.
Well, that's the intent.
Right. We always called it, teasing was a sign of love. We call it grab-assing. The more we teased, the more we loved. But the guys who couldn't take it just couldn't get that we were trying to embrace them and teach them and say, hey, we want you to be one of us. We weren't exclusionary or elitist, but we had certain base standards that just had to be lived up to.
Yeah.
And now it's just, my God, you're jeopardizing your entire career for just little nonsense. And now, if you're the supervisor, I ended up as a lieutenant before I had to retire, and the constant complaints because you're like, you're shitting me, right? Like, you want to file charges for this? Come on. Yeah, and yeah, they did. And I shook my head. I cursed the day I ever studied. I said, I just want to be back driving the Shamrock battleship, Ladder 114, time of my life, not a worry in the world. Just get that truck there, set it up, get in the window, go search, whatever.
Yeah.
Now you're the lieutenant, you're still going in with the men, but now you have all of the bullshit that comes with it. And in the better units, you didn't have that. You didn't deal with that. But some of the units that weren't as busy or whatever, there was more time in their hands. It happens. It's human nature. And just the crybaby stuff. I'm not, I'm going to get hate mail out of this one because I'm not saying that all guys are like that, but the ones who are crybabies know exactly who they are.
Yeah.
And it's funny because the ones with the biggest gripes at the table, at the kitchen table, were the ones that did the least. And it seems like that in society, right? The ones making the biggest noise nowadays have done the least for America. But yet they get recognized. They're the ones who get.
Well, like I said, I feel like we've created this reward system.
Oh, yeah.
Where people are actually seeking out that recognition, and it largely seems like they'll do whatever they can do to get it.
Oh, yeah. I remember, I was an Army Reserve guy for 8 years, but I remember in basic training, we had these brutal drill sergeants. And whatever task it was, they'd scream at you, substandard, do it again. And you just do something 100 times, and you're going, I thought I was doing it perfect. You were, but they weren't going to tell you that.
Yeah.
Because they wanted you to perfect it. And it was all part of that process to break you down to the lowest level so you would then be built up to the highest, because that's how you had to perform. And now, you're not allowed to do that, right? In the fire academy now, they're the instructors, the drill instructors, they give each cadet a pile of yellow cards to wear in their uniform shirt. And if they feel you as their instructor is stepping out of line, they hand you a timeout card, and you need to stand over in the corner and leave them alone for a few minutes.
The service will be worse off because of that.
Absolutely. And everyone's being put at a disservice for that.
Do they get to hand that to a fire when the fire is making them feel uncomfortable?
Last I checked, it'll probably burst into flames in 2 seconds, but right. And that's exactly right. Or, you're a cop and say, excuse me, excuse me, Mr. Fleeing Felon, before you hurt my feelings and shoot me to death, I'm going to give you a timeout. No, there's no time for that. And that's what pisses us off as old timers, right? Because I'm not doubting the young folks that are doing the jobs now. I mean, I just went back home for 9/11 services, and I saw 24-year-old new firefighters and cops from around the country. And I said, hey, how old were you, brother, the morning 9/11? Well, sir, I was 4. And I said, what are you doing here? And he said, because of the brotherhood. I went, that's it, outstanding. I just wanted to hear the answer. And then I realized, okay, these young guys are getting it. They're getting the concept. But a lot of people outside of that, under that subculture are not. At least when we get these young people in and they get trained, they're getting it. But these other people, they have no clue. They have no clue what loyalty and what sacrifice and, putting yourself in front of a bullet for your friend, right? It's all about the guy right next to you. Nothing else matters. Most of society has no idea what that concept means.
I don't want to interrupt, but do you have gum in your mouth, Niels?
I do. Sorry.
Take it out. You're going to sound better without gum.
I got it.
You'll be fine.
I got it.
Sure?
Yeah, you can take it out if you want. Yeah, you take it
I just
out.
didn't want to mess up the recording.
It's gone. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries, man.
You know what it is? I'm so tired. I'm just using it to stay awake, but don't worry about it.
So what was life like as a firefighter before 9/11?
It was great.
I mean, obviously you guys spent a lot of time focusing on your mustache game.
Yeah, that's a big thing. I have one too. I have this little spot. It's always like a bald spot. It pisses me off for years. My dad's got this big, badass Tom Selleck mustache. I could never get that rocking.
It is one of the stereotypes that holds so incredibly true.
Well, you know what it is, Andy? It makes up for the waving hairdo, the waving bye-bye, so, yeah, it's just a tradition. Believe it or not, they say years and years ago, it was guys would wet it and they would put it in their mouth and they would breathe, and that would sort of filter some of the smoke out. I don't know how true that is. I mean, I have nothing to back that up.
I feel like that's just not true at all.
Yeah, it's probably bullshit, but I heard it. Some old timer told me it, and I believed him. But yeah, the job was great. I loved every minute of it. I couldn't wait to get on. And I tell some people, I said, I spent 22 years thinking I got paid to laugh, right? I mean, we just had, oh my God, the ball busting was just, especially I spent about 8 years in this lateral company 114. That was my command on the morning of 9/11. And just, God, it was in heaven. It was my lightning in a bottle of my life. If
I know exactly what you're talking
about.
about.
If I go back, those guys, I just met with them on 9/11. Some of the guys are 75 years old. And we go back 30 years. And it's like the story just happened yesterday, right? And you laugh just as hard, and it's just like, God, it was so great. You know, in 1993, I was at the first bombing, and I was in a different command at the time, Ladder 105, which was a wonderful, wonderful place. And my first lieutenant, who taught me firefighting and a lot about being a man, second dad to me, he just died of COVID, and I was just about to reach out to him to thank him, and I wrote him a letter when I made lieutenant, and he thanked me, and he was a John Wayne-esque type guy, you know, not much for emotion and not much. And when he was leaving his last day, he hugged me. And he said, I love you, kid. I'm proud of you. I molded you and you listened. And that was his highest compliment, Lieutenant William T. Mudry, my idol. And I was just about to call him to say, hey, boss, thank you. And I found out from one of the guys, he just died. But this other gentleman, in 1993, I was at the first bombing.
Which tower was that?
Oh gosh, you know, shame on me.
It was in
so many years.
It was in a parking structure.
Well, it was in the tower itself,
right?
but it was in the garage of the Trade Center.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was in the building. It was South Tower, I'm thinking, but God, you know, shame on me for not remembering at that time. But I'm thinking South. And
was it vehicle borne?
Yeah, it was a U-Haul truck, and actually one of my buddies, his dad was a retired detective working in the private world, and he found the VIN number that helped track back to these dirtbags who did it. But in that afternoon, this gentleman, Henry Miller, wonderful guy, and when you're young, they always assign an older sage guy to keep you under their wing so you don't get hurt. And he's looking around and he goes, Niels, you know what? They did it wrong. They did it here in the middle. If they come back and they got a column in the corner, they would have dropped this thing in Canal Street. He goes, but don't worry, they'll be back. He says, in your career, you'll be back here.
No shit.
Swear to God. And 2 years later, they had a training manual with the Trade Center on it, with a bullseye. And it said, not a matter of if, a matter of when. Train and train right. They knew something was coming. Yeah. And the cruel irony was, on the morning of 9/11, Henry Miller was in 105 truck again working, and my beloved lieutenant in 114 truck, Dennis Oberg, his rookie, or as we say, Pro B son, was under Henry's wing that morning, and they died together, 50 yards from my childhood best friend, John Shart.
Fuck.
And John Shart was, unbeknownst to him, he was going to have his third child. And I got home 4 days later, and my wife gave me the great news of we're having our third child. And I said, well, John's having a baby too, but he's dead. We knew at that point he was gone. And so the job was great in the 90s. You know, I was having a time in my life. I was younger. I was fitter. I was just, you know, you never stop learning in that profession. So the day you could do 34, 35, 40 years, you're still learning something.
What are you doing it? Like you said, your dad did 34 years, 35?
Yeah, 30.
What job do you have at the end? Like 35 years in, I can't even imagine the experience that you have. What position are you generally holding?
Well, it depends. I mean, if you study up, you know, it's not, promotions are based on merit exam. What they're trying to do away with that. And there's a stack of manuals as high as this table, and it's all about firefighting procedures. And, you know, you need to know how to fight a fire in a subway and a loft apartment building and a high-rise office building and a factory and a sub-basement that's 4 floors below the sidewalk. I mean, there's just massive amounts of stuff you need to know. And the test, I studied for 4 years to be a lieutenant. It was brutal. I mean, it was a hard test. So some guys decide to study up, and then they go lieutenant to captain and battalion chief, deputy chief, then staff chiefs, and then the top 5 of the command. And other guys like my dad decide, they call it the back step. They just want to be a grunt for those 20, 30, 40 years. And they're damn good at it. And you got some of the grunts that know more than some of the book smart.
Oh, hell yeah.
You know?
It's cool they let them do that because in the military, it's this forced ascension.
Yes.
It's, you know, your rank and your pay is based off an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
How long have you been in for, and what's your rank? And it comes across, and they'll hire tenure. They were doing this, at least when I was in. You make this rank by a certain amount of time, or higher tenure starts coming around. So it's this forced ascension. Yeah. And the higher you get into the rank structure, both faster on the officer side, but on the enlisted side, the farther you would get away from the fire, to use your guys' terminology.
It's similar.
Cool. But it's cool, though, that guys have the choice.
Yes.
That they can say,
oh, no, you could stay like we had guys, we call, say in the ladder company, the can man. Some guys, that's the junior position under the lieutenant. But sometimes the saltiest old guy wants to be right there with the lieutenant because he knows it's a brand new lieutenant and he might not know a lot.
He's keeping all you guys safe.
Right. So he's there. Look, it's a really unique process. And then you have the guys that drive. They become, in a ladder company, you're setting up the truck and you're still kind of setting up this big metal ladder, or the tower ladder bucket, as we call it, cherry picker, some people say, and you're getting up in it and you're blasting in a window and you're going to look for people. Or then you got the guys in the engine who are operating the pumps. But these guys that drive for 30 years in a district, they can, in their sleep with their eyes closed, get you to those locations because they've just done it hundreds of thousands of times. It's incredible actually to watch them. And it almost is like an art form. And then some guys that become really, really good at breaking down doors. It's not just a sledgehammer. It's a Halligan bar, which is like a big crowbar, and
one of my favorite tools.
It's oh god, burglars love to steal them off the fire truck.
Oh, do they really?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
I hadn't thought about that.
Oh, in the burglar community, that's a lot of money. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's like $1,000. That's
not
hotter than a
considered-
handgun in New York City if you steal a Halligan off a fire
Shit,
truck.
if you know how to use one, it'll do more for you than a handgun.
Oh yeah, and it's a good backup weapon with.
Yeah,
but
Spike will probably get it done.
Yeah, it'll do it. but yeah, so you watch some of these guys, they were almost like artists, the way they took a door within a couple seconds. And I ran into a guy, this old timer who worked with my dad, and the sad thing for my dad is he's the last of his crew that's alive. He says I'm the last of Mohicans, kid, and it breaks my heart. And I ran into an old timer. My dad doesn't say much, and he says, "Oh my God, you're Jorgie's kid," because Jorgie's the nickname. I said, "Oh yes, sir." He goes, "Holy shit, that guy could blow a door off of hinges in like 2 seconds. I saw him take 20 doors down a hallway one night." And I go, "My dad? Oh yeah, what do you get?" He never told me. He was one of those guys, score a touchdown, look for the ref, hand on the ball, walk off the field. Yep. Class act. And when you saw some of those old timers, they literally floated on the fire ground. They didn't even walk. They just incredible.
Yeah.
And I learned so much from them, so much.
You got to get underneath those people's wings and shut the fuck up and
Andy,
take notes.
Yep, and you will learn a PhD worth of firefighter knowledge in a few years.
Yeah.
By just be quiet, keep your eyes and your ears open, and follow them. Incredible.
When you find an old man in a young man's profession, pay attention.
They're damn good. Oh yeah, I just had a gentleman who building a house, and he's a master cabinet maker. He costs a little more. But to watch the work that this man does, wow, an artist. And I love that. I love craftsmen. I love people that are passionate about what they do and damn good at it. So
agreed.
Yeah.
So 9/11, were you on shift? I feel like everybody towards the end of the day was on shift, but
I was moonlighting, which we do up there. 2-3 jobs.
Meaning working outside of the firehouse?
Yeah, exactly. I was a truck driver and a security guy and a roofer, and you did what you had to do, to hustle, to keep your wife home with the kids or keep them in Catholic school. And I was driving an oil truck on that morning in the north end of Staten Island, which kind of looks over the harbor. You see the ferry leaving from Staten Island. You see Lady Liberty out to the left, the Ellis Island just past it, and the tower is right down the middle. And it's a 5-6 mile shot, but you just could look right at them. And I was driving an oil truck, and I was leaving on the route, and I heard on the news radio, which I'm still obsessed with, just always listening, and they said a plane just struck the towers. So initially, being cynical, being jaded, I'm like, some Learjet pilot, your pilot. I'm a student pilot. Yeah. I figured he got caught. Wind just kind of pulled him off, his route, and he just couldn't pull it back, and he hit the tower. And,
that was the initial report.
Yeah,
when
I truly thought it was a Learjet, just a guy, he's getting his client a closer shot, and oh shit, it was like that Yankee, Corey Lydell, God rest him. He was coming down the river,
right.
and he got caught, and he got buffeted into a high-rise building to his death, right? And those winds down there are vicious.
I forgot he hit a building.
Yeah, and I mean, that could happen. The corridor down there is very strict. It's very narrow, and because it has to be, because the winds come whipping down from the buildings along the rivers on either side, and it's like a funnel just shooting you somewhere. So I thought exactly that. I'm like, oh boy, some guy messed up. Long story. They don't want you running in off duty on your own time because of accountability. As you know, you're assigned to a unit. You have a unit commander. If you just show up off duty with no assignment, no one's looking for you. Now you're lost. They don't know you're even there. So second plane hits, I said, okay, this is bad. threw the truck, got in my car. With that, they gave what's called a recall. In New York City, police, fire, EMS, if it's given, you're obligated to go to your command to be deployed to an assignment. So I raced into my firehouse. I called command. Our on-duty shift, 114, was gone. They were dispatched to the scene. I saw the response ticket. Oh boy, they're there. And our command said, get a city bus. When you get 12 members or firefighters, take the city bus, get there. So we did. Our platoon commander at the time, Brian Gorman, he took command. He says, all right, go outside, get me a bus. We threw the people off. Being jaded New Yorkers, they didn't want to get off the bus. They really didn't know what was going on. So we said, look, get the fuck off the bus, or you're coming with us.
Get the fuck off.
Or you're coming to a terrorist attack. And they were like, what, terrorist attack? Yeah. And they got off the bus.
Yeah.
And this guy, John, we just found his name out recently. He said, I'm sorry, I can't give you the bus, but I will take you there. And we said, sir, we do not want to put you in harm's way. He said, I'm sorry, my dispatch said, do not relinquish the bus. Went to 2 other firehouses, picked up the off-duty platoons.
So you guys are all decked out in your turnouts, though. You probably your breathing apparatus.
Yeah, well,
everything you guys can carry. Or?
We didn't have any extra breathing apparatus. That again, too expensive. They don't give you extras. We just got whatever we could. We fielded together whatever tools, equipment we could, and we got on a bus. Yeah, with our personal bunker gear, helmets, gloves, and as we were coming over Brooklyn Bridge, the second tower came down. So, in my mind, I let my guys down. I didn't get there on time, and initially we thought we lost 500 firefighters. In the end, 343 New York City firefighters, 37 Port Authority police, which is the airports, the Trade Center police force themselves, 23 New York City Police Department, about 12 emergency medical technicians, paramedics, a couple of court officers from state courts, and a couple of FBI agents. And they all perished trying to help someone. And we basically went on, we waited for assignment. We got deployed on recon missions, on rescue missions, on search, whatever we could do. Initially, we thought it was going to be a rescue mission, and very quickly after the last 2 survivors, which were Port Authority police officers, well into that night, were retrieved, it was quite obvious it was becoming a recovery operation, and I believe after about 4 days, it was officially deemed one. So that morning, we were there till about 4 in the morning, and we couldn't breathe. We couldn't see the lieutenant. It was literally like we swallowed a box of razor blades. And he said, guys, look, we're useless right now. We were shuttling in equipment. We were trying to, once those cops were gotten out, we were just trying to go in other areas. And I remember going off to the side with one older fireman, and it was just like dust coming down. It was almost like a pile of sand in a dune, and you could kind of hear it, and you hear some hissing, and he goes, kid, what do you hear? I said, I hear the dust. I hear, because everything was pulverized into dust. And I said, I hear some hissing like gas lined water. He goes, yeah, but what else? And I looked over, and there was a lady's high heel shoe, and there was a lady's handbag. I said, what do you mean? He said, what else do you hear? I said, nothing. He goes, yeah, where's all the people? And I went, and he goes, they're dead, kid. No one's coming out. And at first I was like, no, we always get everybody out. Even if they're burned, God, burned beyond recognition, we still find someone. We weren't finding anyone. And as the days went on, the second day there, I remember there was a Fed dog handler, and he said, you got something, there's a hit. And we dug furiously, probably half the size of this table, cut and rebar. And
I was going to say, by Doug, you're going through structural steel.
Hours.
Yeah.
Andy, for a square is half the size of this deep, it took about 5-6 hours to get 2 feet down through the rebar, the Q decking. Pulling out little pile. It was just so frustratingly slow. And then the dog started barking. He goes, you got it. And I said, sir, what do you mean? And there was what didn't appear to us initially to be remains. He goes, that's it. Bag it, you have it. So we put it into a hazmat bag, labeled it kind of where we were, roughly.
Yeah.
I said, sir, you fucking with us? And he said, what are you talking about? I said, we just dug for 6 hours. What did we just find? He goes, it's human remains. And he says, let me explain something to you. He says, you guys are used to recovering a full human being. It's not happening here. He says, these human beings have been pulverized out of anatomy. He goes, there's just going to be parts. He goes, there may be a few of them intact. And there ended up being out of 2,977 souls, about 280, 290 people that were found somewhat intact. Half the people were never even found, not even any remains.
Yeah, which doesn't surprise me, given everything falling that
the
distance.
the energy involved was massive. It was massive. I mean, it pulverized steel. This huge, iconic structure, world known, was now, from 110 stories, was less than a 10-story pile of just rubble. And it was hard to comprehend, like, where the frig did everything go? And where is everybody, right? It was almost like when you play Manhunt as a kid, there's 12 of you, and then all of a sudden, they're gone. Where the frig did they go? And they were underneath, or some of them were just literally pulverized away. And,
for the bodies that were relatively intact, did they find them on the higher floors, or was there something consistent about where they were when the buildings fell?
No consistency.
Just sometimes pockets created in the debris?
Exactly, yeah. Some pockets, just it was almost luck of the draw. If you were in a stairwell and there was a lean-to collapse around you, you might have been found underneath that pocket. But then we have a gentleman, we interviewed his son, and this gentleman, Al Braca, who's this lovely soul who was on the 104th floor, knew they weren't getting out. And there was people jumping from those floors. And he was a devout Christian, and he gathered the people around and he held their hands. And there's cell phone accounts of this. Folks called their families and said, look, I'm not getting out, but I'm with Al. They called him the Rev. And we're praying and we're hoping for the best. And he just said to them, who's going home to see Jesus with me today? And strange enough, Al, I believe they were on about the 102nd floor. His body was found atop the pile, just about fully intact, his wedding ring on. He was identifiable. His son, it was within about 5 or 6 days, I believe. Now, people without faith might say that's bullshit, right? Me, devout faith, that's somewhat miraculous, because here's this guy who prayed with 50 people as they perished, and they found him, one of the only ones. And people were literally jumping out of those upper floors, and they were burning to death. And in their desperate attempt to live, they were taking garbage bags and umbrellas and sweatshirts and whatever they could find to try to break their fall somewhat, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they thought it was like a mini parachute. I don't blame them. And the first firefighter that was killed on the scene, Daniel Sir, was hit by a jumper.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and he was the first fatality. The second fatality officially recorded as far as rescuers was our beloved, beautiful fire chaplain, Father Michael Judge. He was given last rites to victims inside the lobby, and he was struck by debris in the head from a partial collapse, and he was killed. And they have that historic photo of him being led away out of respect and dignity, to give to him, and they brought him up to St. Peter's Church to just lay him out temporarily. And Daniel Sir, one of my dear friends, is crushed with guilt over this, because there's a photo of a ladder truck that's proceeding over the Brooklyn Bridge with the towers burning in the distance, ladder 118. And every guy in that truck died. And the engine company, just in front of them, which you don't see, engine 205, well, their initial assignment was to carry Daniel Sir's body, get him 50 yards across the street to the firehouse so he can be given some bit of dignity. And basically, as my friend said, it was very difficult to pick up that crushed body.
Yeah.
Someone hits him at 120 miles an hour from 104 floors. So it took 30, 40 minutes to physically, manually carry him over, get him up into the bunkhouse, cover him up, and put a sign, please, deceased member, treat with dignity and respect, we will come back. And, and in the interim, ladder company went up to do another assignment. Normally the engine and the ladder would go together, but because they were broken apart, by the time the engine got back and got other orders, the building just came down on them. They were just on the periphery, but their colleagues were killed. And my friend still lives with that. He said, if we weren't carrying Danny, we're dead. And I said, I know, but it's easier for me to say this, but I said, you did your job, you followed your orders, and your fate didn't have it that you were supposed to be. But he can't get past that.
It's really hard to make sense of things like that. I know people who, survivor's guilt is a real thing. Even in the community
brutal.
that I come from.
Brutal.
Well, why did the bullet go there? I was standing right next to this person. It's a real thing. And I don't have any answers for it, other than it's incredibly difficult to explain. And for some people, it's impossible to get past.
I agree, Andy. It's how you manage it. It's like if you use alcohol as an analogy, right? You could be at a function with 12 guys, and a couple guys can have 2 beers and be out of their minds.
Yeah.
And a couple guys could have 20 beers and be looking at you like no big deal. And I think it's just how we humanly process things. And it has nothing to do with, strength or courage, or it's just how we react. Like a friend of mine calls them significant emotional events. And it's how we as humans process them and get rid of them, and when you have multiple significant emotional events, it just sort of builds up. It's like that, how much can you take before you're pushed below the water? Yeah. Some people, damn good swimmers, can tread a hell of a lot of water. Me, not so much.
I find that to be true in the profession of combat arms as well. You could have 6 people to make up a number, experience exactly the same thing. Obviously, each experience would be different through the eyes or the lens of that person, but largely the same experience with 6 very different reactions. Yeah. 5 of them could be fine. 1 of them could be crushed. 5 of them could be, and by crushed, I mean have substantial issues that they're working through. Yeah. 5 could be crushed and 1 could be fine. 3 and 3. It's human beings are interesting creatures.
We really are. We're all unique. We all react. We all behave. We're all different, and that's the sad outfall now for our people in our class, our protector, warrior class, responders, military it's 20 years on now. And, with multiple deployments, the human body and the brain cannot properly process that. You can't filter that out. And you're maxing people out and then they break. And then the human wreckage is just cast to the side because it's no longer contributing or it's no longer valuable. And it's sad because now you have these men and these women in the height of their life and they feel useless and they feel like they don't matter anymore. And it hurts because, this last few weeks, some of the phone calls are heartbreaking. And you don't know what to say to these guys except I love you. I'm sorry. I know what you're feeling.
Yeah. I think that sometimes that's all you can say.
That's all you can say, man. And, they know it's real and they know you mean it. And, the prevailing sentiment in the last few months is, and a bunch of I served no combat. I was only a weekend warrior for 8 years. I was close during the first Gulf War, but didn't go. But some of my warrior buddies that have been there and they've been combat wounded, they said, I feel so betrayed. I feel so let down. I feel like no one gives a shit about me anymore. And that hurts. And I'll say, but brother, I give a shit about you. And they said, I know you do. But what about society? And if I said they definitely do, maybe I'm lying to them, right? At this point,
I think they definitely don't because it's no longer front and center. Yeah. I don't think they intend not to. Yeah. I think that we are constantly bombarded with shit that doesn't matter. But we're a willing participant in that system. Oh, yeah. Right? Because God forbid we put our device down and turn the fucking TV off.
I agree.
So it's not like there's this intent for them to be swept aside, but I think if you tell them, hey, people do actually care, what you did does matter to a lot of people, it may be untrue. But it will always matter to the people that serve them to the left and to the right.
Yes, and that's the thing. Like sometimes people feel we're an exclusionary class, but we're not. We're not like, oh, you're shit because you didn't serve. We don't feel that way at all. But in a certain way, and I would never even compare what you and your fellow SEALs did. You guys are just the top of the top, right? But
trust me, we're not. We're basically monkeys with machine guns.
Well, you know what? We all have dysfunction in no matter what the organization, right? I mean, it's human nature. But you and I can look across at each other and say, if we were in a venue right now, there was a mass shooting in Tennessee yesterday.
At a Kroger.
At a Kroger, where I shop. Not this specific one. But I know that if you and I were there, we would have charged that guy to prevent those 12 other people from being shot. Most people would just take off for the exits. And you know what? Can I blame them? I don't know. But I think in today's society, it's hard for young people especially to be selfless because they're not being taught that. They're being taught it's all about them. And just like you said, and I'm not going to lie, I'm somewhat married to my device because, there's just a lot of things on there, connections, family, communication. But I say to my kids, look up and look up. Look at the person you're talking with or in a relationship with and look up to your creator, you might not have a deep faith, and I don't preach. We came from somewhere, but just be thankful and stop letting this thing, you watch people, it's ruling their life. I saw a young lady walk into a manhole one day almost because she was so, and I'm not faulting her or whatever, but
I'm kind of faulting her and judging her right now.
I guess, yeah, I am too. I'm bullshitting you, right? But, and I feel bad because if it was my daughter, I'd say, what are you doing? And, and my kids, I love them. They're great kids, but they're like, here's the old man again. Here he goes, pencils and typewriters and writing notes. I used to write letters to my grandma in Ireland. And 2 weeks later, couldn't wait to get the response letter back. And there it was. She called me Master Niels Jorgensen. I ripped that thing open. And she'd send me like an Irish, note, like the pound they had. They call it the pound. It's like $1.50 here or whatever. And man, it was the greatest thing in the world to wait that 2 weeks and then send her another one. And then 2 weeks later, get another one. And now I could talk to my cousins in Ireland instantaneously, and we go back and forth. They, bust my chops, you brass Yanks. And I'm like, listen, the next time someone storms your shores, just dial 911 and we'll show up, and I'd like to hammer the shit out of them, right?
That's the beauty of those devices.
Oh, absolutely.
I think the downside is there's so much negative information that comes through it that it really informs people's behavior in view of the world.
Well, there's vitriol, there's anger, there's hatred. And again, we're trying to push that away with what we're doing. We're trying to get messages out there. We're involved in this charity tribute podcast. But there was this tragic event a little while back in my alma mater, my high school. 15-year-old girl. They spread this big rumor about her, and she was, I don't want anybody linking it, the names of the family and whatever. I respect to them, but people started a vicious rumor that was untrue, and the girl leapt in front of a train and ended her life at 15 because of bullshit that was on social media. Yeah. Instead of people saying nice things, right? And that's what I say to people. It's so easy to be nice. When you smile, when you say hello, it's actually contagious. It's harder to be a prick than it is to be nice, right? And yet people they're just so good at being pricks. And I don't get it. I had a girl yesterday, stopped to just pull off to the side to safely answer a text. She could have went around me. It was in a parking lot. She comes right up behind me, blowing the horn, and I'm like, and I don't want to be harping on the negative, but I'm like, what did that just do for you? Like, did that make your day to be nasty? And I don't understand it, and it's, but if we could spread it, acts of kindness get contagious. You do something nice, someone else does something nice, someone else does nice, but all of a sudden it spread to 50 people in an hour, but. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going off. I'm going off on a tangent, Andy.
That's all right. We could go. Trust me, we could go there.
Yeah.
Back to 9/11 at Ground Zero. What kind of radio traffic was coming back from the firefighters that were going up into the towers?
The radios didn't work right, and that was another thing. It was about money.
What do you mean they didn't work right?
I'm going to get in trouble with this one too. So I'm glad I'm retired. But we had issues with our radios for years. In the subways, we couldn't contact anyone. You'd be down 1,000 feet down a subway tunnel, hoping the trains aren't going to come and run your ass over because you're fighting a fire in a storage room, and you couldn't hear command. They couldn't hear you. Same thing, you go up in a high-rise building, and you got a fire ripping on the 60th floor, and the chief's down there going, what's going on? And you just hear crickets, nothing. And unfortunately, some of that happened on 9/11. But then some of the guys, the transmissions were just so routine, it was like they were fighting another fire. We had this legendary fire captain, Patrick Brown, who was a combat Marine in Vietnam, and he was the commander of Ladder 3. And you hear him on the upper floors just talking to dispatch. It was like a routine day at the races, like, we got it, we're going to need 5 more engines. We need 4 more trucks for rescue and, evacuation and this and that. And, and it was like, oh shit, they're going to get this. We're going to get this. And then tragedy. But some of the units that were crying out for help, they were trapped. They're partial collapses that started just before the massive collapse. No one even heard their cries. And it's kind of criminal in a way because nothing was done about it.
They're still using the same radios?
No, they finally did improve them, but it took about another year and a half. But the kicker
crazy.
is the money they saved closing 8 firehouses in May of 2002 paid for the radios. They shut firehouses in New York City after 9/11. And on the morning of 9/11, we didn't have enough fire coverage. For the first time in the history of the New York City Fire Department, we had to be bailed out by New Jersey, Long Island, Connecticut. And God bless those guys for coming to bail us out. I got no grudge against that. But in the biggest fire department in the world, we didn't even have backup trucks. You'd think they'd have, out of a fleet of 425 trucks, maybe 50, just kind of like for, bed, something happens. Nope. Didn't have them. Had to borrow trucks. Had manufacturers that were kind enough to just say, here's a quick 12 here. I'm sorry, that's incompetence. I'm going to have some old-time commanders, this and that, fuck-lip me over that one, but fuck them. Because after 93, we knew something was coming and they weren't prepared. And I had a big-time commander in December of 01 come down. I was filling in a firehouse in South Street Seaport because they were all killed, 14 guys, and they asked older guys to come down and just help out. And some big-time commander, won't name him, he came down to bust our balls about going back out on building inspections. And I said, sir, by the by, I said, and I'm just a first-level firefighter at that point, and he's probably the fourth in command of the whole fucking department. I said, sir, by the by, I understand your concern about the inspection duties happening, and I said, we're going to absolutely do that. And I'm speaking, my lieutenant gave me like the go ahead because he knew I had the big mouth, and I didn't care. I said, but in the morning of 9/11 when we showed up off duty and we got handed 69-cent store hardware painter's masks that basically stuck to our faces within 40 seconds because we were just sweating. And we didn't have the tools to effectively break into doors in the surrounding buildings. We had to go into hardware stores and ask them if we could steal their shit. I said, please tell me that there's pallet loads of Scott Air Packs and Halligan bars and sledgehammers and all of these stuff, all of these tools that we need. Please tell me there's pallet loads of them right now deployed throughout the city at a standing ready point for the next attack that's probably going to come. And he went, oh. I said, sir, please tell me. He got in his car and they drove away. And then I got reprimanded for speaking out of the chain of command. At that point, we just like, fuck you. You're not leading properly. And that hurt because so many of our guys were gone and all the politics was still going on. And I understand that there was a lot happening. But my God, we have all these federal resources. We have all these departments around the country. We couldn't field 1,000 Halligans and 1,000 Scott Packs and 1,000 of whatever we needed within 3-4 months. To me, that's incompetence. I'm sorry.
Yeah. How long did you end up working at Ground Zero?
I ended up down there. It lasted for 9 months. The final symbolic last piece of steel was taken out on May 30, 02.
Were they continuing to look for human remains the entire time, or at some point did it switch to just moving material? Well,
the city actually wanted to. There was a war going on between a fire union and the city administration because they wanted to speed up the process because of the commerce involved. They wanted those buildings up. The insurance underwriters and whoever, they wanted that place freaking cleared and a new foundation poured like next month. And we were like, no, we're going through this respectively and try to find these souls that are gone. So they kept speeding us up. And what happened was in the Fresh Kills landfill in Staten Island, which was a large garbage dump at the time, which has since closed. It was the city's garbage dump. They set up this hill. It was like this hill of death. And they'd bring truckload after truckload of 9/11 debris. And then there would be guys detailed to that unit for quite some time. And they would just sift through this stuff with rakes and then they would come up with remains and then they process them. So for months after the close down of the actual site, there was still that pile that was being sorted through. And they were finding remains for months, almost a year. And then now they just identified 2 people literally 3 weeks ago that were still in the medical examiners in vaults because they keep developing these new ways of identifying DNA. So literally 20 years after these people died, they were just identified 3 weeks ago.
When did you start getting sick from your time at Ground Zero?
I started feeling really shitty in like 08, 09. What happened was in 2006, the first official death of a responder was Detective James Zadroga, who was one of those poor souls sifting through that pile of death out at the landfill. And then he was at the medical examiners trying to put identifications on these souls. And Jimmy came down with really bad lung disease. And the city administration, Jimmy basically in hospice was in such a bad way. His lungs were so bad, they were literally protruding through his body. It looked almost like baseball gloves. And his doctor at the time told him just to grind up his painkillers and snort them or drink them or just to get quick relief. So the city medical examiner found the talcum lining from the pill casings in his lung tissue. And they tried to say that he was an opiate abuser and he didn't die of lung disease. And they tried to deny his family the benefit. And his father was a retired police chief, and he said, bullshit. And they went and they got with this group called the Feel Good Foundation, this gentleman, John Feel, who's just this, he's an Army vet. He was an iron worker and demo contractor who lost half his foot a couple days into the recovery operation. Ended up in the hospital for 6 months, got sepsis, got out and had $600,000 in medical bills that no one would pay. So he married up with James Zadroga's father and these other groups of, unfortunately, many firefighters who were dying to start lobbying for our health care because they just wouldn't pay it. So I started feeling sick.
What was their reasoning for not paying?
Money. There was so many guys coming down, and now you're talking about it.
Of course they wouldn't say, hey, we're not going to pay for this just because of the cost. What would they deny the claims? Would they basically say it's not from your time?
Oh, yeah. Well, at the time, they said you have to prove you were sick from here. So how do you do that? How do you, in a profession, especially with firefighting, where statistically we get cancer more often than the civilian population, but now guys that are 32, 35, 37 coming down with these rare, crazy fucking cancers and lung diseases, and now autoimmune diseases, which still aren't covered. And they're like, nope, no link. And our former mayor, Bloomberg, basically said, there's no link to 9/11 and cancer. And guys were like, bullshit, there's no link. Guys are dropping like flies. But this was in the mid 2000s, 04, 05, 06. Finally, after Jimmy's case and his dad and John Field getting on this. And there was firefighters that had terminal cancers, Ray Pfeiffer and Detective Luis Alvarez. They were literally lobbying Congress, dying in their wheelchair on oxygen, shaming these politicians who would run down the hallways, because I went there a couple times with them. These politicians would see John Field and his army coming down the hall, and they would literally bug out and hide in a cloakroom, hide in a conference room, and we go in and say, come out here, you fucking coward, and sit and have a meeting. And Jon Stewart, the actor, finally got involved a couple years later, and he shamed them in Congress. And he's like, do your jobs. These people lined up 2-3 deep on the West Side Highway, starting on 9/12, which was actually a beautiful day because people were unified, flying the flag, we love you, hugging, kissing. And these politicians couldn't be quick enough to get a photo and a hashtag never forget, hashtag we love you, hashtag responder, all the blah, blah bullshit that they, love to get themselves in the press with. And now all of a sudden, they did the disappearing act a few years later when we really needed their help. So I ended up starting to feel like shit, and I just chalked it off to, getting older, football, firefighting, just, maybe not eating right, being 40 pounds overweight, whatever it is. But then I knew something was wrong. And I kept telling my doctor, who unfortunately on the outs, he was my outside doctor, but also a fire department doctor. And I've heard you say in the past that the Navy doctors, they're not so good. Well,
what I will generally say is the people who get D's in medical school are Navy doctors.
Yeah. Well, the people who get G's in medical school are FDNY doctors. I'm sorry, I'll probably get it. Some of them are pretty good. There's one doctor who was actually in Afghanistan. I won't give his name. He was incredible, but he left due to the incompetence. He saw it. He goes, no, I'm out. But anyway, so in 2010, I was relieved of my command because I had a moment with a big upper supervisor over a procedure, and I technically was right, but he cursed me out, and I told him, you're not going to do that, and we got into it, and I lost. I was subordinate. I lost. So they sent me to bad lieutenant camp, and I went for a medical, and the results didn't find me because I wasn't in my command. And, as it is in bureaucracy, it's not so well-oiled a machine a lot of times. Well, that medical result just floated around until a year later when I was in a cancer hospital and someone got it to me. And it said then that I had cancer. So I was probably walking around.
For a year.
Yeah, leukemia. But leukemia is a strange beast because leukemia is different than an organ cancer, and I found this out the hard way. The fire department pulled me off the truck in July of 11 and said my platelets were crashed, they were gone, that's your clotter. My spleen was the size of a freaking Rawlings football, and there was something obviously way the frig wrong. And I was begging for them to say, please tell me what the fuck is wrong with me. I was physically dying. I knew it. Something was way wrong. And almost 4 weeks later, I showed up to see this doctor for a differential diagnosis. And the guy at the check-in desk went, Lieutenant, she's gone for the day. I went, what do you mean? I'm really bad right now. Like, I should have just went to the hospital. I said, what do you mean? Called her XO, and he's like, oh, shit, yeah, we're out in a restaurant. We'll be back in 20 minutes. Well, they came back 3 hours later, and by that time I was on the floor, semi-conscious. And the doctor who had the duty that day coded me and called 911. And this 6'7" tall African-American paramedic I love. And in the military, as you know, we call the medics doc. And he sees me. He's like, holy shit, 114, where you been? I said, doc, I promoted out. I'm on the other side of Brooklyn. And he goes, man, I haven't seen you in a while. And what it was is we would do car wrecks underneath the elevated highway. We'd cut him out of the crumpled car and we'd hand him off to Doc, and Doc would bring him back to life. So now I'm as red as a friggin' tomato. And he says to me, hey, man, you're not one of those surfer dudes down in Rockaway Beach, are you? You get a bad sunburn? I says, hey, Doc, I'm too fat to fly the surfboard, bro. I hand him my jacket, my medical folder, which is now, friggin' thick with paperwork. And he goes, holy shit, how come you're not in the hospital? I went, ask these jokers. So now he gets into it with the doctor, overrides her, races me to the trauma center, which is a cancer center. And in the ambulance, he says, bro, I hate to tell you this. You got cancer. I said, I know. I said, I had a couple people in my family telling me it didn't look too good. They diagnosed me. They tell me it's the rarest leukemia you can have. Leukemia is different than an organ cancer. It's not really stages. I said, well, where am I at? They said, well, leukemia is like a car. It drives to the edge of the cliff, and then it goes off the cliff. I said, well, where am I? They said, your two front wheels are off the cliff. We're going to try to pull the car back and hopefully hold it there for now. And I'm like, ooh, that's not good. So they drilled into my hip. They figured out what it was. The medicine that I needed is extremely rare. They had to fly it in from Cleveland Clinic. And they hooked me up. And my nurse, Mike Nunez, came in with a hazmat suit. And he says, this stuff is so caustic that if it gets on your skin or on me, it'll burn right through. He said, but when it's in your veins, it's designed to burn away the cells, but not the others. And I'm like, how the hell is that possible? Well, science guy is way above my pay grade. So
correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Leukemia is blood cancer, right?
It's blood and bone marrow. Yeah. So my bone marrow was producing cancerous blood cells.
Okay.
And just could not stop. So basically, I faced certain death if they could not mitigate that, like now. So he said this to me. He goes, look, they're going to give you 2.5 years worth of chemo in 7 days. Bags this freaking big. It's never going to stop. You're going to feel like you're burning to death from the inside out. But if it works, you got a real good shot at long-term remission. And I said, but if it doesn't? He goes, I said, I'm going home. Okay, I'm going home. So he goes to start the IV, and when he preps it, it shoots out a little bit, and it lands on the tube, the plastic tube, and the tube starts to melt and smoke. And I went, Mike, you're not putting that shit in me, bro, right? He said, and I started crying. I'm not embarrassed to say it, right? I'm like, Mike, fuck that. He goes, listen to me. You see those 3 little kids that were just here, my children? He goes, if you don't do it, you're not going to see them after a couple more days. And I went, okay, bro, just give me a second. I got it right with the Creator, and I said, whatever, let's do it, God. And Andy, within about 2 seconds, it's like if you drink some hard booze, right, and you feel that burn. And it started burning up my arm.
Like instantaneously, you're talking.
Oh, I'm talking like now. Yeah, it was like, like whoa. And it started going up my arm, and it went across my shoulder and up into my head. And now you're just like, you're uncomfortable. And then within 30 seconds, my entire body was it felt like bee stings, like I was burning from the inside out. And he goes, okay, that's what it's going to do for 7 days. And he wanted to hit me up with pain meds. And I said, I can't. I know people I love that it's destroyed their life. On the morning of the 7th day, I finally said, I can't do it anymore. Hit me with whatever the fuck you got. I want to die. I was praying to die the first night. The doctors told me if you live through the first 2 nights, you got a good shot at living through the treatment. The treatment is so caustic, it kills a lot of the patients the first couple nights. Your heart gives out, your liver, your kidneys. But I was young. The leukemia I have is usually found in elderly men who worked in oil refineries, specifically jet fuels and diesel fuels. So now there's the mystery. It was the burning fuels. And I was over by 7 World Trade for quite a while, which had a 25,000-gallon diesel tank because it was the backup generator for the 911 system for the city. So I was just breathing in that shit, that soot for couple days straight. And
isn't that the building that fell down that everybody uses as their conspiracy theory
Yeah,
anchor?
yeah. And being a guy who got like a fucking Z in chemistry and physics, this is my thing. And I already got, people telling me I'm covering up.
Tower 7, bro.
Yeah, bruh. Well, listen, bruz. This is what it is. Steel fails at 1,500 degrees sustained burn. It fails. If this was a structural
that shit's plastic. That's
right,
failing at like
that's
42
true.
degrees.
Yeah. I think it's made in China too. What's going on here, Andy?
I don't know.
Right. But yeah, so if you took a piece of steel and you burned it at 1,500 degrees for 30 minutes, it just fails. Well, jet fuel, kerosene-based jet fuel, burns at a sustained burn of 2,200 degrees. So now you get some of these yo-yos who say, well, it's impossible. There wasn't enough fuel. No, there was plenty of fuel. These guys were smart. They took fully loaded planes at a Newark airport. They swung over 4 miles and boof, they were fully loaded. So at 2,200 degrees, what happened with the Trade Center, and number 7 was the diesel tank that was literally hung up in the building. It was like vertically hung down.
Oh, it was like inside
Oh,
of the
yeah,
building?
it was inside the basement of the building, 25,000 gallons of fuel.
Oh, wow.
So when that tank failed and then that fuel just started to, literally, think about it, you got 3 feet deep of the basement of a structure. Now it's just burning at 2,200 degrees. Well, I'm no genius, hence my career as a fireman, right? After a little while, the steel just went, whoop.
Yeah.
And the building, if you look at it and people say, well, look at the concussions and it looked like explosions coming out the side. Well, that's all of the energy. Where does all of that air, where does all that energy go? It blows out. The first space it gets, it's just going to release. So as the floors came down, boom, 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 the energy just kept releasing. And people heard, whoa, multiple explosions. No, that was the floors slapping into each other. And as it got further and further down, now you have 5 stories, 10 stories, 40 stories, 50 stories coming down on each other. They fell like they were designed. If they would have fell horizontally, they would have ended up in Chinatown a half mile away. The guys who built them, they built them right. They came down in a footprint. I don't think they ever wanted them to. They have never expected them to, but they failed as they designed them. So I'll probably, you probably get hate mail out of it and this and that, whatever. But my personal thing, no. I would hate to think that someone in my government did that to our people. It was a bad day. I don't know if the terrorists thought they were going to take them down. Maybe they did. Maybe they were smart enough to know that. But it's just the way the physics worked, and it just happened.
Well, I don't proclaim to know anything about anything, especially Tower 7.
Yeah.
But people have infrequently hit me up with, why are you a shill for the government? Obviously, 9/11 was an inside job. And what I tell them is, listen, I'm not an expert in the government. I'm not an expert in all these shadow organizations that people think carried this out.
Yeah.
But I've been around the government enough and worked with some of those agencies. My personal opinion is that our government is not capable of doing something of that scale.
They're not that smart.
Without having somebody else figure out about it or find out about it. No, man, they were putting explosives in the building. And I'm telling you, first off, Jason fucking Bourne doesn't exist. Right. And you have any idea how many backpacks Jason Bourne would have had to take up there? It's like
probably 740, and he's not that big of a guy.
Correct.
And think about it, the security, the house security in the Trade Center. Then you have the Port Authority police in the Trade Center, the NYPD cops out on the street. You think those guys on 9/9 and 9/10 wouldn't go, there's a bunch of guys walking in with backpacks.
It would have happened to happen for months.
Exactly. And there's no way you're going to pull the wool over that many people's eyes. Someone would have saw something and go, hey, time out. Something's fucking rotten here in Denmark, and it's not happening. I just, that's how I feel. I'm sorry if people feel that strong about it. Maybe they have too much time on their hands. I don't know.
Believe what you want. That's my experience with the government.
It's like I believe in God. Some people don't. I'm not going to fight with you. You don't believe? That's okay. You know.
So back to you basically having the sun inside of your body burning from the inside out.
Yeah. Well, what burned me worse is the doctor who got into the fight with the paramedic. She showed up 2 weeks into it, and she said, so what is it that's wrong with you today, Lieutenant? In her.
Oh, fuck right off.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And my inner Navy SEAL almost came out because I wanted to,
Well, we're sensitive, creative beasts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I gave her some poetry. I gave some good Irish poetry. And I couldn't hear her because my hearing was gone. And I said, excuse me? I said, what the fuck did you say? What is it that's wrong with? Because she thought I was phoning up that episode a couple weeks before to get some time off in August.
She thought you were faking this.
Well, let me go back. This is what she said to the medic. He goes, well, ma'am, his spleen is as big as a football. That's probably from drinking. That's all they did after 9/11. This is how she talks. And he goes, and the blood pressure being 240 over 140? Probably an anxiety attack. They all have PTSD. He went for counseling.
She sounds like a proper cunt.
She's, my Irish mother would be upset if I called her what I really thought of her. But yeah. and the kicker is, the fuel on my fire was she came in then, and I went, what? I go, did you even have the courtesy or the brains to look on the wall at my folder? I said, do you know where I am right now? Because what she said is, why are you occupying a cancer bed for an anxiety attack and alcohol abuse? And I went, oh, this lady's really dumb. And I went, ma'am, and I couldn't hear. I lost my hearing for a few weeks because it burned everything out. I could barely see. I couldn't hear. I was yelling at everybody. Lost a little bit of my mind because it burns everything out.
Yeah.
And I finally just said to her, she looked at the folder and she goes, what? I said, it's the rarest leukemia you can have, and I'm probably not getting out of here. She goes, I'm sorry to hear that. I said, so am I. Now get the fuck out of my room. You're fired. Excuse me? I said, ma'am, I can't hear, but I can read your lips. I said, read mine. Get the fuck out of my room. You're fired. You're not a doctor. You're in the way. I have doctors that are trying to save my life. And then I was in trouble because I spoke to, she's the equivalent of a staff chief, and I was going to be fired. I'm like, you know what? Go fuck yourselves. I'm going to die anyway. My wife will get my pension. Fuck you. And that was it. I was like, I'm out of here anyway, so I'm going to say it like it is, you know? And Andy, that hurt so much because her lack of empathy, there was none.
Yeah.
And I never got an apology. Nothing ever. And I wasn't expecting her to kiss my ass and go, sorry, I almost killed you, but at least have the decency to say, hey, you know what? I didn't really see that curveball coming. I was looking for the fastball. Hey, we're good, Doc. People make mistakes.
Yeah.
But the fact that she arrogantly tried to make me look like the bad guy. Because what happens is, it's human nature. It's the summertime. Some guys, they'll look to get a couple days off. They want to go surfing. I can't surf, right? And that's what the medic thought. I was surfing. But most guys, like me, I'd ride that truck for free. I didn't want to be off. I want to be at work. And the arrogance to think I was faking fucking cancer, like, whoa. So anyway.
That's a lot, and some people suck. You'll probably never get an apology from that person.
No, that's okay. I don't expect one. And you know what? I wouldn't want it at this point. It's 10 years later. I'm living life. Life is good.
So in those 7 days of IV therapy, at the end of it, it was able to burn out what it needed to burn out?
From what I was told in layman's terms is, it killed enough of the cancer cells to stop them mutating. I guess it's almost like a flood. And the more it gets, the more damage it does. So, I'm, again, not a science guy, but the way my oncologist now, who's a world-class guy, Dr. Peter Mansell, he's from Poland. I love the man. He's a rock star. And he was explaining to me the mutations of the genes and the cells and this and that. He said, you're going to have these cells in your body for the rest of your life. But the chemo suppressed them down so far into such a little number that they're just not doing anything. But the kicker is, tomorrow they might feel like, yeah, let's fuck with this guy and it's all over. Or it may never happen. I don't know. And for the first year and a half, I was physically still banged up bad. That mind screw of like, when's it coming back? When's it coming back? You know, like, where's the boogeyman in the closet? Yeah. After a while, you got to learn how to manage that and get rid of it, or you'll lose your mind. And I was driving my family crazy. I mean, I feel bad. I put them through hell.
Probably almost felt like you were almost walking to the gallows every day.
Oh, yeah.
Like that. Yeah.
Well, we used to call it walking a minefield, right? And you know, leading up to getting cancer, guys would say, when am I going to hit my mine? And I knew it. I knew I was going to get sick because I saw so many guys get sick. And then the morning we were coming back from our first tour at 9/11, you know, to go back and get medical help and then return in a couple hours, one of the old timers were walking up a hill. They dropped us off with a bus, and he said, we're all dead. I said, no, Danny, we made it. He goes, no, kid. We can't breathe. He goes, you feel your lungs. It literally felt like we drank acid.
Yeah.
He goes, we're all dead men walking. And the kicker is, out of that 20-man squad, 10 of us now have cancers. 4 guys have had multiple. 1 guy's had 5, 3 bouts of bladder and 2 really, really advanced leukemias. I mean, and we're lucky because out of the 10, we're still alive. There's other crews that have had 8 guys with cancer and 4 of them are dead. I mean, so you're kind of like thanking God that, you know, you didn't suffer their fate. I mean, one of my buddies, Larry Sullivan, this big Irish guy from Rescue 5, I loved him. And I run into him a few months after my diagnosis, and I'm down in the medical office, and you know, they gave me another doctor now at that point he says, hey, man, what are you doing here? I said, I got cancer, bro. How about you? He goes, yeah, me too. He goes, but you know, we're Big Mix, man. We'll beat this. And like 9 months later, I'm standing at Larry's funeral, saluting him as his casket's going by, and I'm crying my eyes out going, why Larry, not me? You know, and you know, I was pissed because I'm saying he didn't deserve that. I should be with him. And again, it was that survivor's guilt again kicking in, because I thank God for every second of this blessed life. But then I say, every time a guy goes, I feel so bad because I'm saying his family must go, why did this friggin' guy get spared? Why, you know, and I don't know. It's like you said, that guy next to you getting shot. There's no explaining.
Yeah, there's no explanation.
No.
So how long was it before you were able to get back to work?
Well, they retired me quickly because once you're cancer, you're alive.
Never.
Oh, I was out. They're done. Yeah, and I begged the doctor. I said, Doc, I should be officially in remission in a month. She said, I'm sorry, your career is over. You could never be on the truck again. And this was the other doctor they assigned to me. She was a lovely woman. And she said, I'm sorry, you can never be on that truck again. I literally, embarrassingly enough, was on my knees begging her, please, ma'am, this is my priesthood. This is what I do. It's really the only thing beside my family I truly enjoy. Please don't do this. And she said, I'm sorry, I can't. She says, you have over 20 years. You're a liability. The city, you know, years back when my dad was sick, they keep you in an office for years, as long as you're still productive somehow. Mm-hmm. Now it's all a money thing. They can hire 2 new guys for the price of me. You're gone.
They can hire them for the price, perhaps, but you can't replace that experience.
Oh, well, they don't care. It's just a body.
Well, they should.
They just want to fill
idiots.
Yeah, they want to fill a spot.
Perspective.
So I begged. So she said, I'm sorry. So January of 12, after I took my remaining leaves and what have you, I was out, and I'm in the snow walking my rescued Greyhound going, all right, what are we going to do? And she's like, we're going to go on a lot more walks. And that was, you know, and she was my therapy dog at the time. Incredible animal. And that was it. It was over. And you know, this is the crazy thing, right? I had my little party, my little, you know, feel bad for myself, all that crap. And my wife finally said to me, she goes, what's wrong with you? You're more depressed about losing a job than having cancer. I said, you're right. And I said, you know, sweetie, I go, they train us in everything else except for how to retire. I said, I don't know how to do this. And lucky for me, I had a brief, I guess, experience in the filming world. I used to drive a fire truck. There was this show by a guy named Dennis Leary. He's an actor, great guy, does a lot of things for fire departments. His cousin and his best friend were killed in Worcester, Massachusetts in 1999. It was a bad collapse. 6 guys died. So he started a foundation, and he started a show about a haunted New York fireman after 9/11, and it was a bit of a dark comedy drama. Some of the stuff made us look bad. Some of the stuff showed us doing good things, but it was a show. And I was lucky enough to drive the fire truck for him, so I kind of had a foot in that world. So when I needed a job, the prop master, my buddy John Tesler, best human being in the world, he said, hey, I'll give you a job. And I work for the stagehands local up there, Local 52, IATSE. We call it, you know, generically stagehands. It's props, set dressing. You know, it's hard physical work, you know, but it's a good job, and I was blessed to have it. So I got into that world, and it was kind to me, you know, helping put my kids through college. But it didn't do it for me spiritually like the fire department. You know,
You were driving the truck, but it just wasn't for real.
yeah, it wasn't. Well, that was actually during my career. So that was the lightning in a bottle.
Oh,
We
you
were
were
doing the show
moonlighting
while
while
I
doing
was
that.
still on. And my best buddy Bobby drove the other truck, and we were like, they're fucking paying us to do this. And then we do the set, and we go to the firehouse for a real 24-hour shift. And Dennis was hysterical. He goes, yeah, and he pointed to the actors. Those are the pussies that pretend to be you guys. And he was great, you know. And oh, Dennis is great. But yeah, but we had the time of our lives. But thankfully, I got back on my feet. I reinvented myself, and I was able to provide for my family. So it's good. Yeah.
How often do you have to get checked for cancer?
I'm on it every 3 months for the rest of my life, but now my doc's kind of shifting it after 10 years to 4 months.
Is it a blood draw?
They do a full CBC panel, and if anything's popping, they'll do some scans. A couple times, I've been about 2 or 3 times up on the verge of a relapse. And by the grace of God, it reversed itself. Don't know why, don't know how. There's really nothing you can do until it comes back.
And if it does come back, will it be the same treatment that you had previously?
The thing with that is, and I might be overstepping my bounds speaking for my doctor, but from what I've been told is if they have success with a protocol, they'll usually try to reuse it. The thing is, in the 10 years since, they've developed a much less caustic treatment protocol. But the problem is the fact that I responded to the other one, now you're sort of fishing with a different bait. So,
well, maybe they could just not give you 2.5 years worth in 7
I hope,
days. They could stretch that out a touch.
And I honestly don't physically think I could make it again. I mean, I was praying to die, and I saw my beautiful Irish mother-in-law that first night, and I was begging her to take me. She had just passed 6 months before. The poor, beautiful woman, she was in a coma. It wasn't fair. And she's smiling. I saw all quick blips of people I love, but she was there, and I said, Nan, we called her Nan. I said, please take me. She said, no, my boyfriend. She used to call me a boyfriend. We talk, and he's not ready yet. Just go back, look at those kids and Annie and my wife, and just go back. And I'm like, no. And she just said, I'll see you. And she just went away, and I'm like, whoa, that was pretty heavy, and she's one of my spiritual forces, her and Father Judge, and my grandparents and, a couple of loved ones that are just up there watching over me. But I wanted to die those first 2 nights. I wanted to cash in. I'm like, I can't do it. I'm good. I'm good. My body just hurt so much, and I was so tired. Like, it took every ounce of whatever you had left out of you. And I'm just like, it's like when you're really tired, you just want to go to sleep. And this was like a permanent, like, yeah, I'm ready. But now I'm glad that didn't happen.
Do you know anybody else that you worked with who had to endure something similar to that?
Yeah. One of the guys who came to visit me, he's dead. He went through something similar, multiple myeloma. Great man, Jimmy. Had no idea he was sick that day, and about 2 years later, he was in a fight for his life, and 2 years after that, he was gone. And I know dozens of guys that I can't say, all of them was I at their house, hanging out for the holidays. No, but had a beer with him on St. Paddy's Day, worked in a certain crew. Dozens. Yeah. Dozens, yeah.
Leaping forward to modern day in terms of reference to the medical conditions that have come from that service at Ground Zero, is it in a better spot now? Are they taking care of guys better now? Are they compensating guys for that? Or is it still a fight?
Well, the good and the bad of it is this. John Fiel and John Stewart and Ray Pfeiffer, God rest him, and Detective Alvarez, God rest him, and Jimmy Zadroga's dad, who took up the charge. The guys with cancer are covered. So if I die, my wife's going to get my pension, and she deserves it. But the cruel thing is that autoimmunes are off the graph now. Now, normally women get lupus. Men don't. And we have dozens and dozens of guys with lupus, and bad lupus. I don't
even know what lupus is.
It's something to do with your joints and I think your circulation, and shame on me because I should know better, but it's painful. It's really painful, but it's normally found in women that are in their 50s and 60s and on up, and now there's guys in their 40s and 50s coming down with it really bad. And I have a buddy of mine who's got an autoimmune that it attacks his flesh. So he lost a couple toes and part of his calf before they could figure out that he needed platelet transfusion every week for the rest of his life and chemo tablets, even though it's not cancer, or he'll die. And now his medical bills are mounting to the thousands and thousands and thousands, and they're not covered. So his insurance that he's been paying for 30 years is going to run out, and it's not covered under the Fed, so he's on his own. And a guy like John Field, I'm sure is gonna that's his next charge, and he'll try to get it covered. But they're giving out bags of money right now to everybody. But guys like that and vets end up homeless and whatever, and you're like, this doesn't make sense. Why do the good guys not get taken care of, but other people that have done nothing for this country just on scholarship? So we're hoping that, the word gets out there and the politicians will do the right thing and cover these guys too, because there's hundreds of them. And
Did
now
you just say the politicians are going to do that?
Oh, that'll never happen. As my Irish grandmother
How
said,
dare you, sir?
As Irish grandmother Nora, God rest her above, would say, those politicians are all like dirty diapers. They're full of shit and they stink. And they are. They all suck. And the thing is, we had to beg, and now these poor guys with the autoimmunes have to beg again. And it's not fair. Or why does a vet have to beg for a job or beg for housing when he comes home after putting everything on the line? That's just a no-brainer, and I don't understand it. It just makes no sense to me. The people who give the most get humped the hardest.
I don't have an answer for it either.
Yeah.
Some of those situations are so infinitely frustrating. I am not a smart enough human being to come up with a solution for it. I wish it was different.
Yeah, I agree. And it's so sad because the guys that are really counting on it are so in such a bad way right now. They're panicking, going, "What the frig is going to happen when my insurance runs out?"
Yeah.
And I don't know the answer.
So what are you up to these days? Tell me about the 20 for 20.
20 for 20 is...
You're a podcaster yourself.
Well,
Welcome
I wouldn't
to
say,
the club.
Thank you, sir. I wouldn't say such a good one. I know how to talk, but I don't know how to podcast. No, I'm giving it a shot. A few years back, I reached out to a gentleman, David Koch, who is a very large businessman, and he's one of the biggest donators to cancer research in the New York cancer hospitals. And I made a handwritten letter just to say, hey, sir, thanks a lot. My doc said basically when he was a research scientist, people like you gave him the funding to find a drug that saved my life. And I'm here now watching my children grow up because of generous people like you. Thank you. And I got a call from him. And the secretary said, can you hold for Mr. Koch? And I'm like, he's a kind of busy dude, but you want to talk to me? And he invited me to a ribbon cutting at a new cancer wing he was dedicating. And I went and met him. He was a wonderful man. It was like hanging out with my dad. I was so disarmed because I figured it would be this swaggering, swashbuckling rich dude, and he was just the complete opposite. And a couple of years later, I said to him that afternoon, sir, how can I ever thank you, repay you? He said, just live a good life. And he said, you're doing it now. That's my repayment. I thanked him. And a few years later, he died of cancer. So these folks, basically there was a little podcast from his family wanted to know why would you reach out? And it was, the theme was the gift of a second chance. I wanted to thank him for my second chance. And some folks from this company, Iron Light Labs, they wanted to do a charity project based on 9/11. They wanted to tell some stories about good folks that were there. And they wanted someone who was there and knows them to help tell their stories. And I said, well, that's not what I do. And they said, well, you held your own on the other one. We'd like to give it a shot, and we just want someone that they can relate to. So what we're doing, Andy, is we're telling 20 stories for the 20th anniversary of these heroes. Some who've since passed, some who're still alive. We're releasing one every Thursday because, as we've seen, it's already out of the news cycle. We're here September 24th, and on the 12th we asked couple folks to give us a little love and put out the word, and they said, we're sorry, it's not a current issue anymore. And I'm going, it's 9/11. So yeah, so these people are incredible. And one of the things is we realized that I think there's 26 states in the United States that do not have a 9/11 curriculum. They do not teach anything about it to the students. And
At all?
At all. And some of them
What do they teach when it comes to modern American history?
Not a lot. I don't know. But they actually deem it offensive, some of them. And it's
those
baffling.
people can go fuck themselves.
Yeah, it's baffling to me. It's offensive to the people who died. And there's now over 3,000 people who've died since illnesses, from illnesses.
Yeah.
So there's more folks who've lost their life.
How many states? Did you say 26?
I believe it's 26. I could be off on the number exact, but it's just about half. It's in and around that number. But they do not have a curriculum. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not allowed to teach it. It's just there's nothing there for the teachers to go with. And then some districts will not allow a teacher to just make up their own. And, I just came across a young lady recently. She's 12, very bright, very intelligent. And she saw this hat and she said, "Oh, what's that?" I said, "Oh, it's a fireman." She goes, "Well, how come you're not a fireman anymore?" I said, "Well, I have cancer. I had to retire." She said, "Well, why?" I said, "Well, I got sick from being at 9/11. She said, "Oh, what was 9/11? She said, "Was that a plane and a bad man or something with a building?" She had a very, very vague idea. And I tried to tell her quickly, little quick brief history. And my wife was there and I said, "Gosh, that's sad. You know, this bright, young, intelligent person has no idea." And then I had an adult that I know goes, "Oh, so what anniversary is it this year?" And I went, "Please tell me you're kidding." I said, "It's 9/11/01 plus 20th anniversary." They didn't even remember the year of it was just 9/11 to them. So that's troubling.
To be honest, some of that doesn't surprise me because people get so absorbed in their own things.
I understand. Yeah.
Like for me, it will always hold a different meaning for me because of the impact it directly had on my life. Obviously I wasn't there in New York, but the trajectory that it set my life on. And it hasn't probably, I don't know. It's been a couple years now, but I'm working on trying to see things through other people's eyes.
Yes.
And the things that are valuable or meaningful to me, I can understand when they're not valuable and meaningful to others. And I'll use the example of Vietnam as an example. My dad was a Vietnam vet. Vietnam didn't mean shit to me when I was growing up. I understand that my dad had served in Vietnam. I didn't know much about it. But it has more meaning to me now, and I was taught about it, and I think that's an important thing.
Yeah.
I think there's a huge difference between being taught about it and maybe not having the understanding that it have for your country or your personal life until later in your life. You get some more laps around the sun.
Sure.
There's a huge difference between that and it not being addressed.
Yes.
We have to understand what we have gone through as a nation and a society, in my opinion, at least. So one, we can learn from our mistakes and the decisions that we made and hopefully improve upon them. If you're just not going to talk about it at all, that's not helpful. That doesn't move the dominoes in the right direction, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah.
There's that huge difference. I can understand, and trust me, my initial reaction when if somebody were to say, "What year anniversary is it for it to be now?" would be internally to be very upset.
Yeah.
I would try to give them a pass in the moment.
Yeah.
Because you and I will have a different connection to that event than most people ever will.
And Andy, it's almost like if they give the base education to young people, maybe it'll light a spark in some of their minds, and then they'll dig deeper and find more out about it. Like I was a history kid.
Vietnam for me.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes when we're young, we're just oblivious to certain things, and it's youth, and I get it. But when I was 12, I could tell you a lot about Pearl Harbor and about Iwo Jima and about the Battle of the Bulge, Normandy, because it was there were such large events in our history. And 9/11 in our modern history is probably one of the biggest, unfortunately, most catastrophic events. But yet it's been somewhat eradicated from the dialogue and from the syllabus. And is that by design? I don't think it's by accident.
My gut would land on that it's by design, and I hope that this isn't true, but I feel like it would be removed because nobody can agree on how to tell the story. It's become politicized.
Yes, it has.
And there were people who would say it was our fault and we need to teach them like that.
Yeah.
And there were people who say, though, that's not the case and they can't agree. So they say, fuck it. We're not going to teach it at all.
Yeah, I think that's what's taken place. And, we're trying our best to not be accusatory, but just a couple sort of avenues we're trying to run with the project is recapture that feeling of 9/12, that unity, that love, that sense of kindness. And it didn't matter color. It didn't matter race, creed, color. None of that mattered at all. We were just America. And then it was a joyous day, yet a sad day because it was the day after the worst day. But yet there was some good of it. And now it just seemed to have faded away. And there's just this anger and there's this division. And why? Because I think there's people who want that. It makes them money. If you take a little campfire and you have those embers and those cinders that are burning and they're just about to go out, but you take a cup of gasoline and it blows up into a fire. And it's kind of what they're doing with the situation now in the country. I don't think people hate each other as much as they're trying to portray.
Or how much they're told that they hate each other.
Yes, exactly. And it's sad because people are being told what to think and how to feel, and what, it's like saying if someone told you all these things about me and you automatically assume they were to be true, and then all of a sudden you sit and go, oh no, that guy's okay. We're making that assumption on each other because of race, because of this, because of that, because people who are profiting off of it are telling us. The press doesn't want to show you the good. They don't want to show the responder delivering a baby on the side of the road and breathing life into that little child regardless of the color. They don't want to show you those good acts of kindness. You have this class of people that I say this, they're willing to give up every one of their tomorrows so you can finish out your today. Look at that beautiful Marine from a few weeks ago, and she was filmed holding that Afghani baby. Yeah. And she said, I have my dream job. Well, as you well know, I think an E1 now in the service is what, $22,000 a year they make? 23? Maybe
that might
not.
be before taxes.
I was going to say that might be reaching, right?
Yeah.
20. So a lofty 21 grand, let's just say, but that's not for 40 hours a week. That's for 80, 90, 100. So this lovely young Marine is making $6 an hour, and she said she had a dream job. I'm like, what? That's incredible in this world. This beautiful young soul where you go, okay, people are getting it, but yet we're not allowed to honor her and those other 12 brave souls in Congress. We're not allowed to mention their names, or they hung flags in California and someone just decided to cut them with a scissors. Yeah. And I know I'm going to get yelled at for the negativity, but I'm going to say it like it is. I'm sorry. It can't happen. So what we're going to try to do is put, in our own little way, a Band-Aid on this stuff and say, guys, time out. There's some good people. This is what they did. This is what they're still doing. The yelling across the table at each other, it's not working. It's just not working.
I don't think it ever has.
No, and I can't believe in how many networks, and it's like all you hear is just yammering all day long, these heads just gabbing, bah, 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 and it's all vitriol. There's no good shit. How about some good shit, once in a while? And we're going to try to put some of it out there.
What kind of stories are you getting for these 20 from 20?
It's an eclectic mix of 9/11. It's we started out with Frank Siller, who does the Tunnel for Towers. His brother Steven was the firefighter with 5 children off duty. Literally got to the battery tunnel with his pickup truck, couldn't get through. Put on his bunker gear, 60 pounds of gear, and ran through the tunnel. Never came home. Frank made this beautiful foundation where, as you know, every Gold Star family in the country, every responder who's killed, and any responder or military that's badly, badly wounded, they're given a house or their mortgage is cleared. So Frank was the first interview. And just prior to him launching his mission, he walked from Pentagon to Shanksville to World Trade Center. And then we had this lovely Egyptian man, Mac Hanna, who helped rescue a bunch of people up on the 78th, 80th floors. And his 2 bosses, one guy was an Italian man, one was an Hispanic man, and the third man's an Egyptian man. The 3 musketeers, right? A melting pot.
For sure.
And he said, take this elderly gentleman that they busted a wall down to get and assist him down 78 floors. And he got to the 21st floor and he ran into Captain Patrick Brown from Ladder 3, the Vietnam veteran. And he said, Captain Brown introduced himself and he said, sir, you need to keep going. He said, oh no, I'll wait here for the medics. He said, they're not coming. They can't. They're not allowed up. Go down to the West Side Highway. And he said, well, what do you do? He says, well, I'm an engineer. So Captain Brown picked his brain real quick, found out about the fire systems, the evac systems, this, that, evacuation. He said, where can I get water? He said, we can break into that vending machine. So they did. They busted it open, went to Halligan. And Captain Brown gave the older gentleman the water, and Mac wanted an iced tea. He put it in his pocket, went all the way down. Had to carry the elderly gentleman the last couple floors, literally, physically carry him. Got out of the building, the last 2 known humans to leave that North Tower. Got to the West Side Highway, sat down, started drinking that iced tea. Building came down. The man is now a Coptic priest because he said God sent Captain Brown to save him. And by getting Mo out, by evacuating Mo, he lived, but his other 2 of the 3 musketeers died. And this gentleman it's so powerful. On the night before 9/11, he called me because I went there for the ceremonies. I wasn't allowed in because I didn't have a pass. That hurt. And he said to me, Niels, this is he's now Father Mark. He's a Coptic priest, St. Mary's Parish, East Brunswick, New Jersey. I said, Father, so good to hear from you. I just want you to know I'm praying for you tomorrow, and I love you, my friend, and you will be okay. And I'd like you to come see me soon because I want you to speak to the children at the school. And I said, Father, I'll be there. And I said, I love you too. Thank you. I'm so glad God put us in each other's path. And he said, okay, my friend, I'll see you. And he hung up the phone. And there's this man that was a stranger a couple months ago. And then we have, I was saying earlier, we have this gentleman, David Bracco, who speaks of his father, Al, who was praying with these people up on the 50th floor and knew they were going to die. And just consoled those people in their last moments. And we have another young lady whose father was on Flight 93, but at the time she was adopted. She didn't know a birth father. But that morning she knew something was wrong and something happened to a loved one. And 3 years later when she turned 19, Mariah, she found out who her birth father was. And it was Tom Burnett. He was on the plane. He was one of the Let's Roll guys. And she just knew it. Somehow she knew it. And she tells that whole story, and it's incredible. And then we have this lovely 85-year-old woman, Shirley, who was stuck in Gander, Newfoundland for week, and those were the people that got grounded. The planes got grounded, and she was so in love with that community up there. They embraced them. They took in thousands of people into their homes, cooked for them, cleaned for them, and now she started a scholarship fund for their youth who don't normally go to college. And you know, we're just going story to story, all of these different people that were there. John Feel, who started the Feel Good Foundation to fight to protect the protectors, literally is the man with James Droga's father who got thousands of people covered. There's now 80,000 people that are ill that are getting federal coverage because of this one man. So we did a story on him. And we're just, you know, we're hoping to go for 20. You know, we don't want it to end, so we're just doing one a week as it comes out.
Are you definitely going to stop at 20? Because I feel like you could go to 30.
Well, you know what's funny,
to 50.
Andy? We've actually had people who want to tell their stories, and some of the folks at Iron Light said, they're like, "Look, if we could swing this, you know, it's a charity project, and we have some sponsors, and we could go to perpetuity with this." There's so many people coming out of the woodwork, these interconnecting stories with like people I've known for years. I've never heard this connection to the story, and it's like, what, like, why didn't you tell me? And you're like, I just never thought of it till now. So it's helping a lot of people heal, but it's also shaking their memory. One of my dear friends is a Vietnam veteran from my firehouse. We were pitching the project on a TV show, a morning show. It was just a quick blip, and his sister saw it. And her brother-in-law, who's since passed, was an NYPD officer, and he had pictures taken from the helicopter the morning of 9/11. Hundreds, just after the planes had impacted, and just photo after photo after photo. And now there goes one tower, more photos. And he said, please make sure these get into the right hands someday. And she saw what we're doing, and she said, I want these to go to the museum. And I said, well, I have the perfect person who'll take them. We have this beautiful couple, Sonia and Joe Agron. They're 70. Joe was a combat Marine in Vietnam, came home, and 30 years in the busiest precincts in New York City Police Department, South Bronx, real tough area. And Sonia was an EMT until she got injured, and then she became Red Cross, or we called them the Angel Ladies, who would come around 24/7 with water, with food, with soup. And they're both dying of cancer right now from being down there. And Sonia still goes down to the museum a few days a week to donate her time. So we're going to make sure she gets those pictures so they live there in perpetuity. And we did an interview with her, and she's lovely. They're just these beautiful people, married for 50 years, living in the same apartment since they were, you know, newlyweds. And Joe was just there for support. He never told Sonia what happened to him in 9/11 because it was his birthday. And he feels like he had something to do with it. Why would it happen on my birthday? And after interviewing her, they switched seats. They smiled at each other. And he said, do you mind if I talk? I said, of course, sir. It'd be my honor. And he just started talking like we're talking. And it was heart-wrenching, his version, because he just started opening up. And we finished. And we got up, and Joe stepped away for a second. And Sonia came up, and she said, thank you. I said, no, thank you, ma'am. She goes, no, he never even told me his story. And he came up to me, And he gave me a hug, and he said, "Can I give you a kiss?" And I said, "Joe, you know, cops, firemen, we're sloppy, especially St. Paddy's Day, right?" Big old hug. He kisses my cheek, but he whispers in my ear, "My brother, please tell my story because I won't live long enough to hear it myself." And Andy, I walked out. I held my composure, and I saluted him, and I thanked him. And I said, "What an honor." And when I got out of the elevator and I got to the car, I lost it for a few minutes because I thought to myself, what a high honor for this man who I couldn't even really shine his shoes, because when I was 6, he was fighting in the jungles of Vietnam with your dad. And now, after giving his whole life, he just said, "I want the stories told because I feel like my country is fading away on me." And I take that as such a high responsibility. And I don't know where the project's going to go. We're hoping it's going to go to a permanent one, to talk about these people who are giving it all every single day, as we say, every tour of duty. But when that man trusted me enough to tell his story, that's one of the highest compliments and honors I've ever received in my life.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I was blown away. And that's what we're trying to do. Just tell these people who no one knows about, who gave it all for strangers, right? They had no obligation to go down there. Sonia had no obligation to donate hundreds and hundreds of hours. And Father Mark, he could have just said, "I'm getting out of here." He didn't have to carry mow all those floors. He could have just said, "I'm out." He didn't. He gave up his safety for a stranger. That's huge. And we need more of that in our world right now. Take politics out of it, take all the bullshit out of it. It's just a human condition. We need to rehumanize ourselves, because if we don't, it's not good.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so we're on a little bit of a mission, and we're just hoping. It's 20for20podcast.com. You know, we have a couple of generous folks that are sponsoring it, and it's been interesting. You know, we've been going in different places to get people. Lieutenant Colonel Ted Anderson, Airborne Ranger, working in the Pentagon that morning, congressional liaison. And he was there when the plane struck his building right just down the hallway. And he started doing what you guys do. He started getting people out. And he got together with another sergeant, and they got a bunch of people out successfully. One guy was burned horribly. He's had 64 surgeries, and he's still here. He's happy to be alive because of the colonel. But the sad part about it is the colonel was held back because the building was about to collapse, and he was in a rage fighting with the fire chief because he wanted to go in, because he knew there was a dozen people trapped in an area that was sort of crunched in, and they wouldn't let him in. And then the rest of the building collapsed, and a couple days later they found those 12 people huddled together dead. And he can't shake it. He said, "I failed my mission. I let those people down. I failed." I said, "No, sir, you did not fail." I said, "You got those other dozens out. It doesn't matter. I still left someone behind." And it breaks my heart to hear this decorated war veteran beating the shit out of himself because he couldn't get all of them. And then you get the flip side, these other people complaining about nonsense, and they're so ungrateful. They should thank God that men like that, Lieutenant Colonel Anderson, gave his life of service to protect them. So those are the messages we're just trying to drop in there, without the politics, without the anger, without the screaming. And I guess you see I can get worked up about it, but we're not doing it in this. We're just keeping it right down the middle, straight fastball down the middle, let people figure it out for themselves. If they want to pull a message out and they want to make up their own message, it's okay. We got no axe to grind. We just want to talk about heroes.
I would like to think and believe that people hearing those stories, it would help them change their perspective.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to win over hearts and minds, but not forcefully, right? We're just trying to show them the human touch, the human side of these beautiful people. See, that's the problem. Like, now everyone's being forced to think a certain way, shamed into it, threatened into it. We're not doing that. We're just telling stories, And I love it because I was a kid who loved listening to baseball games. I was a baseball kid, loved it, played it. But I enjoyed listening to it more than watching it, because when I listened to the radio and I could hear the cadence of the announcer when there was a home run, and you could just see the ball sailing over the wall, or double to center field. You could just see the outfielders chasing it. And it got to me, it got me thinking more. So we're hoping the fact that it's really mostly an audio podcast, that people will just tune in and just really listen to these people. And you could hear the hurt in their voices. You just hear it. You hear the emotion. It's so raw. And I had a couple of hard men, as I would say, tough guys, call me up saying they were in tears listening to it. And it touched me in the heart, because to get guys like that to even admit to that is tough. You know that it's just sometimes, we don't show our emotions sometimes.
Yeah.
But I've had some guys who've had some really, really heartfelt comments, and it makes me proud to say they're my brother, and they're hearing the stories about their other brothers.
On 9/11, was there a point where, I know there was a variety of agencies from law enforcement to EMT, first responder, fire, all of that. Was there a point where they realized if they continued to go into the building, it would essentially be a one-way trip?
Well, I think, I got there as they had come down, so I can't speak for what was all happening up to the collapses, but I do believe that there's accounts of guys from certain units running into other guys from different units saying, "I love you, bro. Probably not making this one. See you on the other side." I mean, there's accounts of that happening, and I truly believe a lot of the guys knew that, and they still went in. And that troubles me, because I say to myself, would have I had the courage to go on a death mission that morning? And I
ask myself those same questions. It's a tough one to grapple with.
But we'd rather be dead than let our brothers down. So I think we just give each other that look like, it's not going to be good, but we're going to be together. And I remember one time, my best buddy, we got lost together in a fire, and we were running out of air. And being the fools we were, we didn't want to call out for help because we were embarrassed. Because it wasn't a big fire, but it was going wrong. And all of a sudden, when that oh shit meter was going off, and we're like, fuck, this is bad now. And this whole timer comes blasting through a window off of a ladder. Like, "Hey, you assholes, come on." And, we're like, "Okay, thanks." And we go down the ladder, and we got out, and he looked at me, I looked at him. He goes, "Wow, that was scary." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, at least we would have died together." I go, "I love you, but I don't want to die with you."
Yeah.
But we would have. And I think that's part of that code, that brotherhood, and, the sisters in it. It's just an unwritten code. You'll go down together. And
not only will you go down together, I found, like I've said on this episode already, the survivor's guilt is real.
Oh, yeah, huge.
And I used to try to seek out, especially on my last deployment where I was more senior than the people who had been there and I had more experience, I would try to put myself in the more dangerous position. Yeah. So I would rather bear that risk myself than allow somebody else to do so.
Yeah.
And I think, knowing the number of people that I have, or did, that have given their life in the service of this country overseas, I feel like, to a man, if they were given the choice between replacing themselves with somebody else or going back there again and having the same outcome, but ensuring that it didn't happen to anybody else, that they would choose, they would choose to go back to that position, so they would be the one that experienced it, to prevent others from having to do so.
I agree. I think it's, as leaders of men, we would rather be dead than lose one of our own men under our leadership. And I remember when I was a rookie fireman, a probie, 1991, my best buddy from the academy, Kevin Charles Kane, FDNY number 12143, and he burned to death on September 13th, 1991. And I remember on about September 8th, I said, "Holy shit, it's KC's 10th anniversary. I can't believe it, how fast that went." And I didn't think of him until the 15th, because we were digging, and it broke my heart. And his lieutenant, Kevin, got trapped, and it was just a twist of fate. A ceiling came hinging down, collapsed, an inferno, and Kevin was on the burning side of it, and the lieutenant ended up on the clear side of it. And the lieutenant was feverishly trying to break through that, wooden roof, and as Kevin was writhing in pain and on fire, and it was before we had the full bunker suits. We only had the old coats and rubber boots because of money again.
You're telling me you guys were wearing like fucking 501 jeans?
Yeah, we were wearing jeans with roll-up boots that, muck boots that would roll up to your hip. And
a jacket.
And a long fire coat. It was somewhat fire retardant, but it was not what we have now in the present day. And we were, for years, trying to beg the administration to give it to us. And finally, in 1994, when 3 of my buddies, my colleagues, burned to death literally in a tenement, in Manhattan, Mayor Giuliani at the time said, that's it, enough, give these guys what they want. I don't give a shit what it costs. But in 1991, when Kevin, he was burning to death, and he dove out of a window to land in a bucket truck, and he died 20 hours later in a burn center. And this was a kid who tried out the priesthood and realized it wasn't for him. And then he became an airborne ranger, and he did his 4 years, and he got discharged, and he wanted to be like his dad. And guys used to bully him a little bit in the academy because he was a different kind of guy. He was a character, but he was a little bit unsure of himself. But for an airborne ranger, he was one of those unassuming guys. You knew he was a killer. Don't push him to that level. But until you got him to that, he was just, soft and nice. And I used to protect him almost, and say, "Come on, Kev, you sit and eat lunch with us." And and he became part of our crew. So then, as we got tighter, then he bust my balls. And when we were rookies, we were in trucks that ran in together. So if he got to do a certain task before I learned how to do it, he'd be like, "You suck! I cut a roof before you. You didn't cut a roof yet. You suck." And then all of a sudden he's gone, and I'm going like. And it was just powerful. And then the strange part about it is our other squad mate, we went to Kevin's wake together in 1991. And then Jimmy was one of those 3 guys to burn to death. And we finally got the gear. And I remember going to Kevin's wake with Jimmy to greet Kevin's father, who was a retired chief. And now all of a sudden you're like, am I going to be number 3? And that gets in there. And sure. And yeah, there's all these different forms of guilt that you form over the years of service. And then when you become a lieutenant, and Kevin's lieutenant, he was never the same after that. He blamed himself for his rookie dying, but it wasn't his fault. There's nothing he tactically did or could have done to change that. It just happened. But he couldn't live with it. He retired after a short while after it.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, those are heavy burdens to bear, for sure.
Yeah. And most of society doesn't understand those emotions because
I'm glad for that, actually.
They're better off. But that's the thing, is that's why they have a hard time understanding the warrior class, because they just, I've heard people say to me, it's 9/11, let it go. It's 20 years, let it go. Like, what? Let it go. Like, they're just so nonchalant about it. And I understand, because it didn't confront them. They didn't lose anybody. For weeks, for months, when you respond out of a firehouse, you jump out of your shoes or your sneakers if you're working out, and you leave them aside, and you jump into those boots, and you pull up the pants, and you put on a coat, and the trucks leave. Well, for weeks around New York City, there was empty garages, as we call the truck bay. The trucks were all destroyed, but the shoes were still there because all those guys died. And nobody wanted to be the guy to put those shoes in the guy's locker.
Yeah, fuck, I don't blame him.
And finally, his chief said, "Look, guys, we got to bring trucks in. We got to get crews, So guys had to go around and take those shoes and put them in Kevin's locker, and Nils' locker, and Andy's locker. And it was heartbreaking for them. And most people will be like, what's the big fucking deal with that? That's my friend's shoes. And he's not there to fill them anymore.
Yeah. I'm glad they don't have to experience that.
Yeah, they're better off.
Much like the people that we worked with who would willingly go in somebody else's stead to bear that burden.
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad that I was able to fill whatever microscopic role that I had so other people would not have to.
I agree. And
but it does make it tough, because people will say some dumbass shit, and you're like,
yeah, you want to strangle him. Oh, one of my buddies, one of my neighbors is a warrior. He's a airborne infantry ranger, and he's got this beautiful mural tattoo of his foxhole buddy being led off the plane in Dover, his coffin, and he's got a beautiful flag. It's incredible. And then he's got another one on the other arm. And he was with his young kids, and some girl started sassing off on him. You proud of being a killer? You this, you that? And his wife had to physically take him and pull him away. He said, "Excuse me, do you know who that is? And she was 19. She knew everything, the girl, right? She's woke.
That's all right. Life's going to serve her up
right.
a
And
fucking uppercut to the chin.
Yeah, you hope karma doesn't come back and bite her in the ass. But he said, he goes,
but except for when you do.
Yeah, it is a bitch, man. It is a bitch. But you know, this guy, he said to me, he said, after my rage subsided, he said, I felt so hurt. And he said, I actually prayed for her. He said, this girl is so ignorant to say something like that, having no idea this man I'm memorializing on my skin. And that's the continental divide of the warrior class and civilians. And that's why cops right now are having such a hard time. They're getting buckets of urine and feces and all other sorts of crap thrown off of buildings at them. And look, not every cop's a perfect human being, nor is any organization in this world. I don't care what it is. There's messed up people in all walks of life.
It's just people.
It's people.
Yeah, people are messed up.
But they hold you to these high standards that are impossible to maintain. But they're trying their friggin' best. And again, it's just, how about some good? How about showing some friggin' good? And no one will. They're so scared of being woke or not getting the agenda out there. And it's just sad. It's like, stop, enough. We need some positivity. We need some love. We need, I kid around. I want to open a hug booth, right? There was this guy in Manhattan a couple of years ago. I think they locked him up because he didn't have a license, right? He was just hugging people. And people were lined up, right? It was like, I was in the airport this morning in Chicago, and there was friggin' 50 people online for a coffee. And you'd see this in Manhattan, there'd be 50 people waiting for a hug. And he wasn't a pervert. He was just a guy who wanted to hug people. And I'm going, that really makes a lot of sense. Like, people, hugs are one of the greatest things someone can give you, because it says, I love you, I give a shit about you. You might even be a stranger. It's like when I worked on Rescue Me. There was a 100-person crew on the film set. And now I'd probably get in trouble, but I was the hugger. Not because I was a weirdo, whatever. I just truly meant it. I love people. I hug them. People would line up for their morning hug. And I go, what are you doing? They're like, you don't understand. I had a shit ride in here. It took me 2.5 hours, and they banged me out for 40 in tolls. Bring it in. You give them a big hug, and they got rid of it. And then they start their day. And it's funny, but it was like medicine. Yeah. And it did more for me than it did for them, because I said to myself, wow, I'm really making them feel good about themselves in their day. And it did. And now we can't even look at each other, right? It's just, you don't even know if anyone's smiling. We're not allowed. That's weird. I hate it. I want to look at people and smile. And now if you smile at someone, they think you're weird. That's what I love about small town America. It's nice. It's still that humble, how are you? I'm good, how are you? And then you get into a little conversation with a stranger, and then, and go your way.
Agreed. So what the hell are you going to do with your life moving forward? Seems like you've lived about 7 lifetimes
I have no
already.
friggin' idea, actually. I want to.
Damn it, that's my answer.
I know. I want to finish. I was training to be a pilot with my son. He's a good pilot. I'm a wannabe pilot, but I found that cognitively from all the chemo, the learning was coming hard. Yeah. I enjoyed it. I was doing okay with it. Got my solo in, all that stuff. Started, stop a couple times. Then COVID just put it to a halt for a while. So part of me, I'd really like to get back into that, but I know doing it for a living is not probably going to happen. I'd love to maybe do some mission work, just fly supplies in places, whatever. Yep. I've done a couple missions with storms, with a couple Christian missions, just showed up to help them out, and they said, hey, if you ever fly, you're going to come back. So, but anyway, I don't know. I'm going to let God guide this one, with this whole podcast. I'd love to go into a permanent project talking about great responders and warriors and just getting the good messages about them out. But for the here and now, I'm 100% with, it's on my time and whatever, and that's fine. But we're probably going to be busy up till almost, the holidays with this one. And I don't know. I'm going to go back to being a stagehand for a while. I'm a half-assed farmer, not so good at it. I got a couple tractors already in creeks, and so it's.
I think that might mean you're not a very good driver.
Well,
you could still be a great farmer.
Yeah, you can't drive a tractor like a fire truck in New York City. I learned that a couple times. It's just it's circumstances. There's hills, and the grass is wet. You don't realize
you're going to
tip
very easy.
Yeah, or you're going to slide for 50 feet uncontrollably. It's a very humbling process. So I'm sort of winging it, but I don't know. I'm a firm believer God's leading you where He wants you to be next. So I'm in that blessed position. I have a pension. I have bosses with my stage career who are very patient. Like, they like my work ethic, so I can come and go at will. My kids are finishing up college in the next couple of years, so after that, things will be a little easier. But I don't want to fully retire yet. It's not, I'm 53. Like, I'm not ready for that. But I was a 3-job Charlie for so long that I'm physically tired, but I still have some left in me. I mean, if they told me tomorrow, drop 30, 40, probably 50 pounds, you could be back on the fire truck. I'd be in the gym like a maniac. I would go back on the truck in a minute. It's never going to happen. So I'm looking for that next, where do I fit in? But as you know, passion and doing something that you love, when you're not doing that anymore, you're sort of constantly comparing what you're at the moment to that. And I have to stop doing that because...
That's life in the rear view mirror.
Yeah, and then when you do that, you're not looking at the road. And then what happens is you crash your car.
Yeah, or tractor, depending on what
tractor,
you're driving.
yes. Yeah, roll it. Yeah, you roll
Since
it.
you
Yeah.
allegedly, hypothetically have a few in the creek.
Well, my neighbor said to me a couple weeks ago, this was a smaller one. It was like a 0-turn mower, and I'm down there, and he says, you need a hand? I'm like, nah, I'm good. He goes, you're going to need a hand. He comes over with a winch in a truck, and then 2 hours later, we get it out. So I never would have gotten it out without him. But they're great folks. They love to teach you what they do, and it's a huge learning process for me. But
you know what I found when it comes to figuring out what you're going to do next is it took me a while to come to this realization, and I think it's been recent. You can fall in love again, and I'm talking about professionally.
I agree.
The key to it that I have found is being willing to take steps away from what you used to be in love with.
Yes, and if you get out of your comfort zone and test yourself. Like, I love flying because it's challenging, and I have one instructor where he loves crosswind training because, as you know, you start your ass cheeks start curling up in your seat, and you're going, why am I 50 feet away from the runway? And I love flying for that reason because it's so challenging, and yet it's got that mystery to it. You're not really sure what you're in for next, and it's similar to firefighting, and you have to be into it. You have to work at it, and so that's one of the only things that just given me that satisfaction. But more than that, I love helping people.
I feel like you're going to fall in love with talking to people.
I do, because I love good people, and as you can see, I can run my mouth. And my wife's a sweetie.
Podcasting will be good for you.
Yeah, well, my wife's very funny. My wife's a good kid. She should have just given up on me years ago. Between 9/11, I was absent physically and emotionally for almost a year, and then I got sick, and then it was all over again. And she's a great woman, but she's my fiercest critic, my biggest ally, and she could just knock me down quicker than anyone. And she said to me, there's a whole lot going on in that big Irish head of yours. And she goes, it must really be torturing you that people are asking you to talk. And that I'm like, yeah, and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying because I'm learning so much from people. And the one thing I learned in the chemo ward was to listen, because I lost my hearing somewhat. And I was a little bit of a docent on the cancer ward because I tried to keep my spirits so high, and I was masking my pain and my depression. I was putting on a smile, and I was talking to everybody, but I was in a bad way. And there's this gentleman next to me, and they had to give him his own room because he was not going to make it. And he was an older African-American man with advanced throat cancer, and he really couldn't verbalize, and it was very frustrating for him. But I realized he just waved at me one night, and I put my ear down to his mouth, and I could hear what he was saying. It was pained, but you could make it out if you really listened. So I try to have little conversations with him, and I try to give him some hope. And he just said to me, I'm 83. There's no chance. I smoked too long. And he was accepting it. So they had me come over one night. He was calling for me. And they kept pointing to my room, like, get him. So I came over, and I said, sir, you doing okay? And he pulled me in, and he verbalized in his whisper to please call his sister in North Carolina because I'm going to die tonight. And I told the nurse, and I said, could you get me a phone? And I said, could you dial so they'll understand who, I'm not some random weird dude, So the nurse got on the phone, and she said, there's a gentleman that wants to speak to you. He's your brother's roommate in the hospital. And I just said, ma'am, I'm so sorry to say this to you, but your brother would like to speak to you. You probably can't hear what he's saying, but he said he's going to go home and he just wants to say goodbye. And I put the phone to his ear and he smiled and he said a little something, and then I repeated back to her what he said, and she thanked me. And he died that night. And then the next day there was this young girl that was from my response district, an African-American girl, and she was only like 21, and they figured she had leukemia, but if they don't drill into your hip with this huge needle, it's almost like a drill. They can't figure out which one. Mm-hmm. There's 49 of them. It's like ammo. You can't put 9mm into 38 with it. So they have to find out exactly which one it is so they can treat it. So she wouldn't take the bone marrow harvest because it's brutal. And they asked me to talk to her. And I had come in a couple times to cheer her up and talk to her. And I said, hon, look, I just had it. And I said, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that the medicine doesn't hurt. But the only way they're going to save you is if they do this test and figure out how to treat you. I said, hold my hand. I'll stay with you during the test. You squeeze as hard as you can. You yell at me, whatever you have to do, but let's do this. So she agreed to it, and she squeezed my hand, and I kept consoling her, just hold on, hon, it's only 5 more seconds. And they got the diagnoses, they got the right med, and they saved her. And I'm not saying it was me, but I took such comfort in knowing that she trusted me enough to help see her through that. So I'm hoping that I can find a way. It's not even about money. It doesn't matter at this point. I'm solid. I'm comfortable. I am content. I have what I need. But I'd like to just keep doing some good acts just to make it right for my heart. And I guess that credit card balance I have with God is huge, right? I need to pay it back. I need to pay it forward. And I just hope I can find that right niche to do it, And I think this project is allowing me that. It's allowing me to connect with people. And what that doctor lacked was empathy. She never walked in my shoes. She never knew my fear. She never knew my pain. And I would never wish it upon her because it's cruel. But when you have empathy and you can try to put yourself in that other guy or that other girl's boots, and you know that you've walked in those boots and you've carried that fear and you've carried that doubt and that uncertainty, you can relate. And I think a lot of people, once they can connect with you on that level, they know you get them. And my wife, sometimes, my phone will ring a lot, and I try to counsel a lot of people because they trust me. And she said, doesn't it get tiring? Doesn't it wear you down after a while? And I said, I'm not going to lie to you. There's some nights where I'd rather be doing something different rather than talking some guy out of suicide or begging him to go to rehab because he's drinking his liver out of his body. But then I say to myself, my lieutenant that I just lost, my mentor, my idol, Lieutenant William Thomas Mudry, I know he'd pick up the phone if I dialed and said, hey, Lieutenant, I'm having a real shit time. And he'd see me through it and he wouldn't hang up. Or he wouldn't see the call and go, oh, shit. He wouldn't do it. Yeah. And that's why I do it. Because they're my men. And I wish I could have traded with him and these other guys, and I didn't.
I think a lot of people feel that way who survive when others don't. And I think the best thing that you can do is live the most fulfilled life humanly possible. The life that they wish that they could have lived or would have wanted to live.
Oh, I think about my friend John every day. He always smiled. And that's why I smile at people all the time, because I'm saying it's so easy to be miserable, but you make people's day. I had this girl this morning. I was in the airport at 4:30 in the morning. And I knew she was tired. She's probably there all night. And she made a cup of coffee. She's like, I'm so sorry. I just ran out. I said, it's okay. And she's like, it's going to take about 8 minutes. I said, that's okay. And 8 minutes later, she come walking up with my cup, and I handed her $10. And she said, no, sir. I said, no, thank you. You're here all night. You could have said, we're out of coffee, but you didn't. And it's those little random acts of kindness that make such a difference, right? The look on her face went from fatigue and tired to happiness. It's $10. It's nothing. But it goes so far. And I think people are missing the point with that stuff. These little random acts of kindness. There's a teacher in Philadelphia, she calls it Do a Patty Brown, because she read about Captain Patrick Brown. And he was known as a kind, loving, decent man. Hard man, soft edge. And she said, why don't you go do a Patty Brown today? And I think that's such a beautiful lesson to teach these young people. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing weak. There's no shame in being a good person. Doesn't mean you're weak or soft.
It means you're strong.
Exactly. You know, bullies do that because they're insecure.
Yeah, they're some of the weakest people that there
They're
are.
scared. I was bullied badly as a kid. My Irish mother caught me going to school with a pocket knife in 6th grade. She goes, Jesus Christ, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to stab these guys to death. They keep punching me in the belly, right? She goes, you're too young to go to jail. You're going to be in prison. So my father took me to the
they
side.
don't send 6th graders to prison.
No, I hope not. I don't know, yeah. But I saw a 9-year-old carrying a 9mm one day, when I work. But anyway, and my father took me aside. He goes, what's going on? I said, Dad, these guys beat me up every day. I can't do it anymore. He goes, okay, let's work out. Box, whatever. And I went on a mission, man. I was like Arnold Schwarzenegger without the steroids, right? I went on a mission from God and work, and I got stronger. And then a couple years later, he always say to me, it takes a man to walk away from a fight. So I had this guy, this bad dude in the neighborhood. He was a few years older than me, and he started in with me, and I just got the best of him, and I had him in a headlock, and I could have pounded the piss out of him, but I didn't want to. And I said, okay, Frank, you tried to make your point, and let's just walk away like men. And all of a sudden, I walk away. I'm so proud of myself. My dad said it takes a man to walk away. Guy comes running up. Boom, 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 boom. And now I'm down on the ground, a bloody heap, and I come in, Dad, you told me it takes a man. And he goes, I didn't mean it literally. All right, he goes, listen, the next time, you got to give him a couple shots. And I feel like God made me big for that reason, to be that protector. I purposely will put myself in the way of the weak to defend them, and sometimes it's got me into trouble.
Yeah,
and it's not an ego thing at all. It's the right thing to do.
Probably feels like what you were put on this planet to do.
Yeah, I love protecting, but at the same time, you can't go too far with it, because then you get yourself in trouble. If you stop for every road incident or this and that, after a while, the cop's going to go, yeah, you're not working for us. Get the frig out of here, right? But it just burns me up when you see, these people doing these vicious acts to innocent people, and you just want to react, but you can't. You get in trouble. So
yeah, where can people find the 20 for 20s? You said it was 2420podcast.com?
Yes, sir. It's 20 FOR20 podcast.com, and Iron Light Labs is the sponsor company and sponsor site. Can be found on Apple and Spotify podcasts. Appreciate it. Folks, give it a listen and give us a rating. And, as I've heard you say before, if you think we suck, tell us we suck. You like it, tell us you like, you're not going to hurt my feelings, but it's from the heart. It's people telling their story, and the beautiful stories they have. They're powerful. We just let them just tell the audience what they did, and what, it's about sacrifice. It's about strangers laying it all on the line for strangers. And isn't that what America's about, right, when you think about it? And yeah, so we're hoping it gets out there, and maybe Iron Light will be kind enough to keep me around for a little while, and I'll keep on gabbing until people just get tired of hearing me. So
I don't think that's going to happen. They get tired of hearing you part. You're a good storyteller, and people are trusting you with their stories, which is an incredible thing. I'll do everything I can to
I appreciate
try to
it,
help
and thank you. And I
on.
so appreciate what you've done for our country, and you just continue to do. And I am so humbled. I really am. When a gentleman like Joe, a combat Marine from Vietnam, I'm like, that's just the most humbling thing in the world. To sit across the table from a hero that just says, I trust you. And really, that's something that's kind of fading away, is trust, right? We just so few trusting people anymore, and I can understand that. It's a tough, in-your-face world.
Yeah.
And we're trying to dull that down a little bit, and maybe Iron Light will sponsor a hug booth, and hopefully I won't get arrested. But it's just because people need hugs, man, right? I mean, we can't now with COVID. You can't hug, you can't look, you can't this. It's like, what the freak? We're taking the human touch away. Now we like all these automated cash registers, right? Try to get a human being to interact with you just to buy groceries or there's no more people. Like we're doing away with people. And that scares me as an old guy because I remember it was all about everything was a human interaction. Now.
And we were better for it.
We really were. All this technology has taught us so much, except we're regressing in how to physically communicate with people. We're losing those skills. You know, I mean, I love my kids and they're great kids, but there's times where we're sitting at a table with a family group, 12, 15
Everybody's
people.
head down.
They're texting across the table to each other.
Yeah.
It's like, who are you texting? Oh, my sister. Like, what? Like, talk to each other, but the flip side is to watch my dad try to master technology is comical, right? I mean,
just
I love
keep
it.
upgrading his tech so you
God.
can have constant entertainment.
But I love it. Oh, my niece's boyfriend's a tech guy, and he just cringes every time they go to see my parents. He goes, hey, Matt, do me a favor. Come on over here. And like 2 hours later, Matt's point because my dad messed something up, on his pad, and it's actually very funny. But I get such a kick out of it though because my dad, when he first learned to FaceTime, he'd do it like 6 times a day, and they're like, Dad, you really like looking at me, huh? No, I just really think this thing is cool, And now he's just a phone call. All right, yeah, I got sick of looking at you, but it's funny to watch all the folks master it. Yeah, it's something else.
It's a trip for sure. I cannot thank you enough for dedicating your time to coming out here and talking about your experiences and the stories of the people that you have talked with. I think it's amazing. Like I said, I'll do everything I can to help promote it.
No, I'm honored and I'm flattered that you would give us the time and a lot of it. And as you could see, I could kind of wander away, and it's
Those are the best guests.
I hate excuses. I haven't slept in 24 hours. I couldn't sleep. I was so jazzed up on getting out here, and there's just a lot I'm trying to cover, and sometimes you try to rush through. There's so many things you want to tell in this.
Here's the beauty. You guys can come back. You got an open invitation to come back.
I would love
you
that,
want.
Andy. And I'd love to get my son flying with you, actually, because he
I haven't
loves
flown
to.
in years, so that would be
Really?
actually
Okay.
exceptionally dangerous.
Okay, well, it's all right. You do danger. You're a SEAL. Come on, But
I am trying to avoid danger in my
no, I know.
older years.
Isn't it funny? We're bulletproof when we're 21, and then we get into our 40s and we start going, I don't like being in a
I'm
hospital.
not doing a good job of avoiding danger, for clarity, but I'm trying to.
It's hard. It's hard. And in my mind, I'm still 21 until the next morning when I can't get out of bed, and so
that's how it is.
But I appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much, and just thank all your fellow brave warriors for what they've done for us. I mean, we would not have this free country without you guys. So thank you.
Well, I assure you that they would say it was their pleasure. And on that note, thank you guys.
God bless you, sir. Thank you.
On the west bank of the river. That's A-firm, west bank. It gives me hell. Still give it to me in the grove. Okay, one's in from the north. I've got the west bank of the river. Two's going to give it to you in the grove. Roger, give me that gun run. Right along that bag, baby.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Thanks for taking the time to tune in, whether you're listening on an audio-only platform or you're watching on YouTube. I appreciate that you take the time every week to tune in. People ask me a lot, what can they do to help me spread the word? And the answer is actually embedded in the question. The biggest thing you guys can do to help me if you enjoy the podcast and you think it would be helpful to others is subscribe and share it with other people. And if you have the time, go on to Apple Podcasts and leave me a rating and a review. If you think the podcast sucks, tell me it sucks and leave a 0-star review or the lowest stars possible. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion, you can go to clearedhotpodcast.com and there is a contact me button right there, which will land in my inbox. And the last thing, if people are interested in helping out, what you can do is fly the old flag. And by that, I don't mean an actual flag because I don't have any of those. I'm talking about t-shirts or sweatshirts or hats, whatever it may be. Again, clearedhotpodcast.com. Click on the shop tab, and hopefully something in there looks like it would be an item you would like to wear around town. And then you can tell people what it is when they ask you. But that is it. The biggest thing I can say is thank you. I truly appreciate it. And until next time, see you.